All right. Hey, folks, this is Alan Jones with HiFi Buys. I want to welcome you to HiFi Chats. I believe this is number 12 or 13. I'm sorry if I've lost count, but I am so pleased to have Matt Weisfeld, president at VPI, with us today. How you doing, Matt?
Alan, I'm doing great. It's good to be here. I'd rather see you in person, but hey, we're making things work with these things.
You know, they're gonna get these Zoom calls to where they'll have, feelings and all that. We'll have emojis we can pass back and forth, I'm sure, at some point. So anyway, listen, thank you so much for being here. Let me do just a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get moving right into it, okay? Sure. If y'all will, we'd like to ask you to like and subscribe. You'll see a place on your screen to do so. Also, if you don't mind going to hifibuys.com, sign up for our newsletter. You end up finding that'll kind of keep you apprised of what is coming up, and we've got a lot going on here at the store. Also, you guys, in this COVID thing, y'all pay attention to yourselves, do what's right, take care of your neighbors, and again, appreciate all the folks out there that are on the front line. Last week on HiFi Chats, we had Roger and JT from Sonos introducing their new ARC and a lot of other new products they have coming out. Next week, I'm off because it's my birthday. So I'm very excited about that. Me and HiFi actually share the same birthday. So it'll be a great day for us.
Finally old enough to drink. That's great. Good for you.
Yeah. And then on July 10th, I'm going to have Garth Powell with AudioQuest here on HiFi Chat. So I'm really excited about talking to him about his new power cords and line conditioners and speaker wires and that kind of thing he's been doing, which have been absolutely doing some amazing things out there, not only here at the store, but also out in the houses. So, Matt, that's pretty much with housekeeping. You ready to get going here?
I'm all set, man. Let's do it.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So let's get to know Matt a little bit. Tell us a lot about your family. I know a lot of people probably know some of this already, but please share it with us. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's just kind of funny because the whole story of VPI was kind of unexpected since my dad, Harry Weisfeld, initially started as a hobbyist. He was just making inventions in his basement. He was that crazy DIY guy that, we all can't stand, that the person that's just like, oh, I can make it better. That was Dad. That was my dad. He actually started with making a record weight and then a whole bunch of other products, but he was originally a tin knocker. So he was a sheet metal mechanic, but he was an electrical engineer. So he was all over the place. And wow. He had the opportunity to take the sheet metal union test, and he scored so high that's ended up being what he was doing. And on the side, he just loved hi-fi, but he couldn't afford it. So he just started doing his own thing, and he'd go into stores and hang out. And essentially one day he just goes into, I don't even remember the store now. He sits down one day, and this is before Facebook. This is before, we all know what he looks like, everything else. And he sits down accidentally next to Harry Pearson of the Absolute Sound.
Wow.
So small world situation. They get to talking, and my dad's just excited about his invention. And Pearson, he's blown away. And, he then exposes my dad to the Keith Monk cleaning machine, and he played a record for my dad. He heard it, and he said, Harry Pearson, you broke me. It's always tough since they're both named Harry, so we'll say HP. Don't get confused. So my dad, Harry, says to HP, you broke me. Now I need to clean my records. This is just too good. So, but he couldn't afford it. The Keith Monk's machine was like $2,000 or something back in the 70s. That's a lot of money now. In the 70s, it just couldn't happen. With my dad being a young couple, with my mom, Sheila Weisfeld, and, with a child on the way, everything. And so he ends up making the HW16. But now let's think about this. We all know about the 16. That means 1 through 15 didn't work out so hot.
And now we're at 16 and a half.
yeah, there we go. So, it's funny how that'll happen. And the way the story goes is, and, so HP let my dad borrow a Keith Monk's machine. He loved it, checked it all out. And then from there, he just came up with his own idea of doing it. At the time, my dad, being a sheet metal mechanic, had access to some material. He threw something together, made it all happen, and then brought it to HP. And then that's when the review came out. And wow. The way the story goes, my dad comes home and my mom says, hey, Harry, you got some good news and bad news. Like, what's the good news? You got, an order for those things that you're making in the basement, like a crazy person. The bad news is it was for 500. So just like that, VPI is born. And, wow. So that's what led to the initial of where we just had to become a company, and my dad got serious about it. So he started with the HW16 at the time, and then it moved on from there, where he made an isolation base. Now that was actually the HW9. Then Denon ends up going to my dad. What's really funny about this is my dad thought he was getting sued. They thought that Denon was coming after him because he was just making this isolation platform for his friends, for whatever. And I don't remember the rep's name now. I actually met him a few years ago. And he said, no, your base is so good. We want to use it. We don't want to bother. So they put the Denon direct drive motor in.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it just went from there, where the Denon direct drive motor, and then eventually the HW19. And so from the initial history, where my dad was just, he left his sheet metal mechanic job. My mom took over as, she was just helping out. And I remember as a child, my mom was making me breakfast while answering phone calls, probably from you. Alan, you've been a dealer of ours since, back in the day.
Yeah. We've been at it a while.
Yeah, and so eventually we emerged from the basement, I guess you could say, and we moved. My dad left his job, and actually, what I thought was funny in the VPI history, the same year that the CD player came out, and a lot of turntable companies were running for the hills.
Yep.
That's the year that both my mom and dad left their day jobs to do VPI full time. Now, we have a VPI book now, and last year when I was doing this, like, Dad, not for nothing, I'm glad you did it, but what were you, nuts? You left your job, you and Mom left your jobs for an industry that at the time, analog rather, that at the time was considered to be dying. And my dad's like, well, I really like making turntables. And that was it. Simple as that. He just liked making turntables.
Stay with your passion.
Yeah, and it just kept going from there, where they went from the basement to we ended up a smaller building, about 1,000 square feet. And then 5 years ago, we grew to the current spot we're in now. And our original staff was just my mom, my dad, our original veteran technician, Leo, and my grandma. So
wow.
Fast forward 40 years later, now we've got about between 12 and 15 people, and just still making turntables.
Fantastic. Well, the designs are a little different looking today than they were.
Yeah, I'd say so. We made some changes, along the way. And to be honest, I never thought I'd be part of this. And initially, I had my life was all set, or the direction, and but I was always part of it. I don't remember if I put this in the book or not, but when I was younger, just a funny little anecdotal story. I used to work in the factory. And I had a quota. I had to work. I had to make the motors. Actually, all of you original TNT and HRX owners, I made those motors. So if they blew up, sorry. If they were great, that was all me. And for whatever reason, I was very good at making motors back then. Mm-hmm. And still now. But with it, though, my parents didn't pay me. Child labor over here. It's unbelievable. Right. So what my mom used to do, though, is she'd let me use the card, the company card, for gas, or, if I went out to eat and things like that. Nothing too crazy. And that was like the balancing of the scales. Well, one point I was a young kid, a little silly, and I didn't go into work that week. So I go out on a date, and I'm using the card, everything else, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm this turntable guy. I'm like just making up stuff at this point. I'm just a kid making motors. I'm trying to impress this person. And then the bill comes, and I go to pay for it. Card doesn't work. And so I'm all embarrassed. I said, oh, no worries. Let me call the bank. Let me go, whatever. I'm just making up stuff. I don't know how. I had to have been like 17 years old or something. So I run to the back. I call up my mom. I'm like, Mom, I got a problem. The card doesn't work. And my mom says, well, apparently neither does my son. And right there, I knew it. The best work ethic lesson I ever got. Right there, I ended the date. I understood. I got it. And I remember it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I ended and went straight to the factory and built motors until I was done. So Mom and Dad give me a good work ethic education.
Good lesson, Mom.
Yeah,
I'm sure that I'm so glad that sticks with you today. You had a new addition to your family recently. Tell us about that.
Yes. So recently, well, actually not that recently now.
Right.
God. So very excited. Well, first, in keeping in line with the family business, my wife Jane Weisfeld now runs the office like my mom did, and almost 2.5 years ago, we had my first child, my daughter
Wow.
Shyla.
It's hard to believe it's been that long.
Yeah. Oh
Wow.
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
it really feels like yesterday. I mean, just yesterday, she's doing full sentences now. She woke me up, pulled me out of bed, and she decided what she wanted me to wear yesterday. Like, Daddy, this one. You're
Well,
talking.
she is a cutie, no doubt. We all enjoy seeing her on Facebook. So
Yep. Fortunately, she takes after my wife.
that is awesome. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up in New Jersey. I was originally born in New York, but I don't know. My dad, he was the Brooklyn boy. I didn't really grow up enough in that to really feel it. But we moved out to New Jersey when I was about 4 years old, and so I went to Homedale High School. Actually, what's funny is the schools I went to are also schools I later taught at. But
Wow.
grew up in Homedale, graduated from Homedale High School. And I was just that standard kid. I did all the stuff. I did, I participated in jazz band, in the pep band.
What'd you
Actually, I was
play?
really into the instruments a lot. Played piano, loved playing the piano. Actually, now all those piano skills have paid off. I play Baby Shark on the piano for Shyla all the time. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in Homedale, played the piano, the trombone, the jazz band, and everything. I did the standard stuff of track and field. I was not very good at that though. So that's and the other big passion that I had was the martial arts. I did a lot of that and musical theater. So I did a lot with musical theater. Did a lot with the martial arts. I still do. Still do with the martial arts. Actually, it was exciting. I got to do an outside class, social distancing style, with Jane and Shyla last night in a park. So, and she's running around kicking and punching too now. So,
Well, it's probably great for you to be able to get back in it and then also have the family join. That's what an awesome thing that is.
yes. Oh, it's just so much fun with that. And from Homedale High School, after graduating, I ended up going to Monmouth University. And this is what's really funny as far as my background. I really have no background as far as an educational standpoint for business, audio, any of that stuff. I went to school to be a teacher. So went to Monmouth University and studied history and education. And then afterwards, I went back and got my master's degree in education. So
Wow.
my whole history and background has been of just being a teacher. And it just was that was my first passion, I guess you could say. And just that and teaching martial arts, doing theater. I played Muddle the Tailor 4 times throughout Jersey. So
4 times. Wow. Awesome.
yeah,
I was born in Morristown, but I moved away when I was 3.
uh-huh.
Well, that's awesome. So one of the questions is going to be about hobbies, but you've pretty much covered that, I guess, with martial arts and music and plays and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'd say my 2 favorite hobbies were that, just doing the martial arts and the musical theater. The musical theater, and actually that happened, which I believe we'll cover a little later, due to some tragedy in my life. Essentially, when my brother Jonathan, unfortunately, had been killed in a car accident, my mom and dad had no idea what to do with me that summer. And there was a bunch of kids in my neighborhood. They were doing a theater summer class, and it's like it's like daycare with theater and all that stuff.
Right.
And there was so much going on with the unfortunate circumstances that they put me in there, and I loved it. And it just was a starting thing that just went from there, where I just kept on doing more performing arts related things. Just got into singing, the dramatic side, even the dancing back in my day, tap dancing, ballet, all that fun stuff.
Wow. Awesome. So right place, right time, and kind of a horrible time in your life.
Yes. Yeah. And then before that, the big thing with the martial arts was, frankly, I was a wuss when I was like really younger and everything else. And my brother John, he was like my protector. And I was the kid that I joined the whole martial arts thing with everybody else, because I think my mom and dad were like a little worried about what's going to happen to me or something, I was very different then. Had some struggles. While we're getting all into it, when we first moved out to New Jersey, we screwed up. Not we. I was a 4-year-old kid. We missed the cutoff for standard elementary schools. The only school that would take me was a Orthodox Hebrew school. We're not Orthodox Jews. So I go into this and everything, and they are teaching Hebrew at the age where you're supposed to like learn regular reading. So I learned how to read backwards. So when I go to, then eventually I'm into the regular public school system, I had all these problems. I had a tracking problem and reading problem. And eventually my dad's like, doesn't have a problem. Spent the first year reading backwards. He's all messed up. So I had, so there was a lot of things. I was very shy. Which,
like learning how to drive in London and then being told, go in the US, have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It was exactly like that. And it's, a lot of things were just different about me then, where I had trouble with reading. I was very shy and unsure about myself initially. I still struggle with that today, clearly, it's struggle to talk and everything.
Not buying it. I was going through a lot of that as well at those ages and that kind of thing. Hey, it's it probably took me till I was probably in my mid-30s till I really found myself and kind of where I was and where I wanted to be and so on. So anyway.
Yeah. Oh yep. Yeah. And for me, with all of it, like at the martial arts, because the martial arts was a huge part of my life and still is. Again, I'm still practicing, and at that point I was just awful. And there just came a point where I want to say like the first time I like connected, in a fight, not to get violent over here. That first time we're like really, I was about 15 about 15 years old, where I got that taste of it, where I was so scared. I was at a tournament and fighting, and I was at the bottom of the division. Like I just turned 15. The division was like 15 to 17-year-old kids. Wow. So I go in there and my opponent is like 3 heads taller than me. He has a full beard, he's like a tattoo. I don't know. He's like ready to shave. And I go to start and I'm so scared. I closed my eyes. I closed my eyes. I put my leg up and I blindly kicked, and then until I accidentally caught him right in the face. I don't want to say accidentally, but it happened. And it was like I woke up like, wait, wow, I can do stuff. So
that's awesome. What a story. So tell me a little bit about, I'm sure others are interested. I know you've reached a really high level within your martial arts. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I've trained in multiple martial arts, Taekwondo, Goju-Ryu, Aikido, Hapkido, every weapon, love weapons. So sometimes when I talk about this nonchalantly,
it's okay.
Actually, on a quick aside, back when I was in college, a friend of mine was feeling sick and I had to take them home, and they lived on an army base close here. And I pulled to the front and my car is loaded with swords, sais, nunchucks, bow staff, knives, and sharp objects of all kinds. And I get to the gate and the cop comes in. I'm a college kid, so I wasn't thinking. And I said, "Oh, officer, just let you know, I have a lot of weapons in the car." As I said that, I'm like, oh no. They all gather around. The guy steps back, goes for his, sir, step out of the vehicle. I'm like, no, I teach martial arts. It's, I practice it. So, oh God, that was, never say that to a military police officer. I got a lot of weapons in my car.
Good lesson there.
I did that for many years, since I was 10 years old. I started in Americanized Taekwondo. And did that for until I was 20. I did that about 15 years or so, give or take. And then just life changes and things like that. I couldn't do that anymore. Then I actually, because of VPI originally, our truck driver, the guy that would drop off the packaging, he was a little Mr. Miyagi. We had no idea. So my dad's the proud dad. And one day he's showing pictures of me from one of the tournaments, like, look at my kid. Look, I'm so proud. And this truck driver, this guy, at the time, this guy, his name is Stan. I'm Facebook friends with him. Hey, Stan, if you're watching this video, here we go. Hey, Stan. And so he comes up to me well, he's all like, oh, really? And my dad's like, hey, he's a black belt. I'm like, okay. And so I go in one day and I'm being all cocky. I was like wearing like a sleeveless shirt, like a dumb high school kid. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a ninja. And right in the factory, he was like, okay, try and hit me. And I'm like, just trying to hit this guy and everything else. And he just like, one move flips me over into a whole bunch of VPI boxes. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's the real deal over here. And so, then I started training with him in traditional Taekwondo. And man, that was a trip. And I loved it, so I trained with him for a couple of years. And then after that, I wanted to do more. Because realistically, Alan, if you were to go back 15 years and ask me what I'd be doing now, it would have been teaching and martial arts, not this.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted more of the martial arts. So I trained in Americanized Taekwondo. I trained in traditional Taekwondo, but I didn't have hands. So then there's this Japanese school right here, the one that I'm still at now, this school, Amato's Karate and Weapons Academy. And so then I go there, I start learning Goju-ryu, a Japanese style. And, got the hands, got the feet. And then at the age of 15, no, it wasn't when I wanted that tournament I mentioned earlier. That's when it all started to blend and come together. And I ended up, it wasn't when I'm forgetting now because now I'm 35, I'm old. But I was 16 or 17, whatever the age was. I went to this tournament. It's the International Martial Arts. I don't even remember what it is. One of like the largest tournaments in the world. And I won my division. And just for kicks and giggles, they threw me into the adult division. It was a bit of like, oh, let's see what happens. And I kept winning straight up. And
Wow.
It got to the point where they were like, oh my God. And I ended up being the youngest person to win the grand championship for fighting in the end of all of it. So, when I was over there. So things that I never thought would be happening in life.
That's probably a moment that had a large effect on you.
Massive moment just in general. And that's really when I thought that was going to be my thing, martial arts.
So let's talk about life experiences, things that have had an impact on who you are.
Yeah. I mean, the big one, the martial arts, that moment, a lot with the musical theater, actually. There was one moment where I don't remember what was going on in my life at the time, but I was having again, it's all about confidence, as far as things that get you going. And I just had this, I was in high school. It was in the middle of all this stuff too. And my mom made me go for this audition in Red Bank for the Count Basie Theater, Fiddler on the Roof. I was just being a jerk. I went in there. I was just, joking around, everything else. I didn't take it seriously. The guy running it, who did the whole thing for Fiddler on the Roof, was like the guy who did it on tour when Fiddler on the actual thing. And I didn't know this. I think it's some guy. So I did my thing. And then he was like, you come back here. And now I'm getting a little scared. And it's like, and he just tells me, okay, do that again. But this time, give a crap. And, it was one of those types. And I did. He scared me. And I got into it. And he ends up casting me as Muddle the Tailor at the Count Basie Theater, which over here, it's a huge stage. It's a huge theater. Blows my mind. And I end up being this awkward kid on this huge theater, this stage. And I wasn't really very good until like the last minute. Like it didn't click. It was like all this, the whole step away, just going through it. Actually, I still remember Fiddler on the Roof. You have to grow a beard. I was so young that a week before the show started, the director's in a mood. He's yelling at this guy, "You're not this, you're not that." Goes to me, "And Matt, I told you not to shave." I said, "I haven't." Too young. He has to buy me a professional beard and all this other stuff. I'm freaking out. And then it clicked. It all like came together. And it just became my thing. And there on the Count Basie stage, I'm pointing like because it's in that direction over here.
Right.
And so then I performed this Muddle the Tailor, and that was like the first time I had like a big role. like I wasn't newspaper boy number 3.
Right.
Actually, something of importance.
I think
And
I was a tree.
yeah. And that's what led to me for a while. I ended up performing on off Broadway at one point as well.
Wow.
All from this. That side of my life ended up not being in the cards. Just actually, that I feel like I'm tying into other things. I know you're going to ask me later, so I'm like jumping all over the place. But yeah, so we got that, and then the other things that really hit my life were with my brother. Well, my mom, dad, and brother. Because when I was younger, my brother was my protector. He took care of everything. Like I said before, was a bit of a wuss. And there was this kid when I was little, I was picking on me. And I couldn't defend myself yet. This is before the martial arts stuff. And I still remember this moment. My brother John goes up to this little kid, and he's just like, "You're upsetting my brother." This kid's like, if Matt's not happy, I'm not happy. And he was a big guy, weightlifter and everything, and was always looking out after me. So basically everything with my brother, and he was always good to keep me humble about stuff. If I was doing well with something and getting a big head, martial arts, when I first came home and I'm like, "I'm a ninja." He's like, "Whoosh, no, you're not."
Well, we'll tell you, y'all have done a beautiful job commemorating your brother's life.
Thank
So anyway, I know he was very, very important to you. So
yeah,
let's talk a little bit about how you got into this business. Obviously, there's a lot of ties with the family and that kind of thing, but you were a teacher. And so what got you from the passion of teaching into being with VPI?
Yeah, so that it's about 10 years ago now. 9 years.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It really feels like yesterday. Actually, what's making me feel old, I used to be a teacher, not recently because of Corona, but like last year, I'd be in a bar and someone would be like, "Mr. Weisfeld." I'm turning around, I'm like, "Who's this kid?" No, I'm sorry, "Who's this person?" And like, "You don't recognize me?" It's like this big guy, and I'm like, "Oh, geez, I taught you like 10 years ago. What the heck's going on here?"
Right.
But so I was teaching, and in 2011, unfortunately, my mom, Sheila Weisfeld, who ran VPI with my dad, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So initially, because my mom did not want me to be part of VPI, and I get it now, just because, well, and Alan, running a business, there's a lot of struggles that people know nothing about.
Yep.
A lot of days where, because a worker can, as hard as they are, they can go home and they can forget about till tomorrow. We go home and we still have it, whatever stressful stuff or things that's going on. And I think that's why my mom really didn't want me involved with this, because I was always active, and she loved the fact I was a teacher and just always pushed that. And when she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I tried the best I could to help. That's when I tried to make VPI a little more automated. That's when we started doing QuickBooks for the first time, and all this technological stuff. And really what did it was, before she died, she knew that her time was limited. And we just gotten product of the year from Stereophile for the Classic 3. So her plan was to go to CES, see the distributors, see everybody, and say goodbye to all of her friends. At the time, this when CES was still, people were going,
Yes.
and our Hong Kong distributor, Ernest Lau, that was actually an influential moment I'll come back to. Our Italian distributor, everybody. So I was just supposed to be the seeing eye dog. That's all I was doing. Still the teacher and everything else. Mom wanted to go out there. And so that was the plan. She ends up dying 2 weeks before CES. So now at this point, it's like, what do we do? My dad assumes that's it. He was done. And, it's no secret that, it was a 6-month struggle with pancreatic cancer. He was shot, mom, all the stuff. And at the time, his plan was to sell VPI. And rightfully so. There were companies interested. I was the school teacher, so what was I going to do? And there really wasn't anybody else. My grandma was way too old at that point. She's, God bless her, she's still around, 93 years old, but
wow,
still, it's and so I go to tell him, like, well, we have to figure out what we're doing. He's like, what do you mean? Like, I got to go to Vegas. And then my dad's like, what the heck are you doing going to Vegas? It's done. Who cares? They can mail the award. And then I don't know. I just felt like it had to happen. So finally, I talked my dad into it. So I could tell you what, Dad, this is all, it's emotional time. Think of it as me just going on a vacation, going to Vegas. Okay. And there happens to be an audio show. Okay, fine, go. And one of the first things that really did it was when I go in and I know nothing at this point. And little secret, if you look at the pictures of me on Facebook or anything, when you see me in a 3-piece suit, I am completely full of it. I had no idea what I was talking about. I ended up knowing more than I thought, but still, that was all false confidence. And I put on a 3-piece suit. That was my armor. Go to CES, and I don't even know where I'm going. So I go to registration, and I tell this woman who, to this day, I have no idea who it was because I feel like I was kind of still in shock of everything. And I tell her, hi, my name's Matt. My mom handled everything. I don't really know much. Her name's Sheila Weisfeld. And this person initially was being like a little bit like, okay, come on, spit it out. I got a lot of work to do. And then once I said, oh, Sheila Weisfeld, I'm like, oh my God, you're Sheila's son. And that's was like, wait, huh? You're a stranger. He's like, I feel like I didn't have a full appreciation for the impact and relationships that my mom and dad had. Because they're just mom and dad until I was there at CES. And this stranger stopped everything she was doing, walked me through everything, printed me a badge, printed me everything, gave me the guide. You need to be here at this time. You need to this, you need to that. I was like, I was like ready to cry. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And that's where it hit me. And that was the first wave. Then I go to get the award. I'm going to blame John Atkinson. So if John Atkinson's watching this, John, you better be watching. He made assumptions, and they were good assumptions. They weren't really correct at the time, but it literally got me thinking. And so he's handing me the award, and there's the picture of me on Facebook, if you go back. And in that moment, he's all like, wow, this is great. And I'm thinking, WTF, what am I doing here? And John's shaking my hand saying, Matt, this is really great what you're doing. This is a wonderful thing. This is good for the industry. And I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what John said. Right. But John just starts going on about how this is so great. And then Stephen Mejias, who was working at Stereophile at the time, then second thing, we're the second generation. We got to stick together. We've got to this. I'm now, holy crap. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just getting the award. This is very heavy. And then, John starts telling me stories about my mom, and it just kept on going from there. And then I have a meeting with my Hong Kong distributor, Ernest Lau, and this broke me. And I'm trying not to like get choked up just talking about it. And we're sitting there, and he's just like, and I asked him, like, Ernest, like, why did you still want to have this meeting? I mean, I'm useless. I'm just the kid at the time. And Ernest is just like, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have problems. I'm trying to give his accent. And he's going on about how, like, we're going to have problems. I'm going to fall. Get back up. Keep doing it. And then what he really got me, he says, when you're ready, we will be here. We will be waiting. VPI. And it's just like a hardcore serious, like, let's do this. Yep. And that was the first thing that just really motivated me to just try and do it. But
it is always amazing to me how tight of a family this whole thing is. And it's kind of been what we've heard an awful lot as we've gone through these HiFi chats and that kind of thing, and just the friends in the industry and the people that we know, and just don't really realize how much of an effect that we have on the people around us until, you go through something like that. So anyway, I'm very sorry for the loss of your mom. She was a nice lady and always treated me extraordinarily well.
Yeah, so she liked you, so I
amazing.
Alan Jones over here. So, in the beginning, that was everything I did. That was the question. What would mom do? So any existing dealers, and people were nervous when I came in, obviously. I mean, it was I know it. And there were issues in the beginning. I mean, there was one time where someone actually was worried that, we were going to ship everything to China for some crazy reason, and like all these wacky things were happening. And I remember having a conversation with one of the dealers, maybe it was you, I don't know, but I said, listen, I'm getting there, but I'm going to maintain the values and the overall direction of my mom and dad and
culture.
Exactly. Of family owned, just made in America, giving a crap about every customer and every product. You know, it's and also relationships with our dealers. I mean, Alan, I've known you forever. You know, just taking care of everyone, taking care of the dealers, and just you're part of the family.
Well,
I think
that's part of the thing. I think that, you know, a lot of people, you know, in your shoes, you get on board and you have all these wonderful thoughts that are all over the map. And we've all had them. I know I have. So, and it's sometimes hard to rein us in because that's kind of the people that we are. So anyway, I think it's a wonderful thing what you've done. And I know your dad has really enjoyed seeing you come into this role.
And he's been great as a mentor. In the beginning, my dad and I fought like cats and dogs in the beginning because he just wanted this to go away. But now, you know, it was just the best thing ever. He's always been a mentor. He's always helped me along the way with stuff. And it's just been great having him part of it still. Fantastic.
We're going to get into that in just a second. So tell me about the first time you sat in front of a stereo and went, wow.
So this is really kind of cool. The first time I remember, and this almost made me a little bit of an audiophile snob by accident, because I thought all systems were supposed to sound like this. So I'm a little kid. My dad has a 3-channel Dahlquist system set up. Okay. He's got the, man, you know what?
Probably DQ10s.
Yeah, it was the DQ10s. I want to say it was either Manley or VAC, one of those two, was the electronics. I mean, I was much younger, and it was right when my dad had made the Super Scoutmaster reference rim drive, whatever name, you know, it was the rim drive. It was the Super Scoutmaster, and it was with the Nordos cable, I believe, whatever it was. And I'm sitting there with him, and it was a Belafonte, and we're sitting next to him and everything else, and we're listening. I got my eyes closed, and next thing you know, I'm just like, it's hitting me, and I'm talking about it with my dad. Like I just accidentally slid into that music lover audiophile moment with my dad, where the whole listening, it became an experience. It wasn't just background music. It became like center stage. This is like making a big deal. And so we listened to Belafonte, then we listened to what is it? Wagon Wheels. I don't remember the song now, but we were going through my dad's soundtrack, and before I knew it, an hour had passed, and we were just listening to records going on. My dad was like, "Okay, we're gonna do this one. Listen for his voice." And I'm like, "Wow, yeah, no, it's very raspy and this and that." And then, you know, like my dad was doing like whatever he was doing at the time. Like, which one did you like better? Like, there's more detail in the first one, and that was that. This is really cool. I thought my dad just sat there listening to music and was just like hanging out.
I can tell you that was probably one of the most enjoyable moments for your dad and for you, I'm sure.
Yes.
Probably something he's wanted to relate to you in some way, in, you know, that musical way, and being able to have you just kind of come along and have that conversation naturally, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And then another moment that I had, which was, I want to say more recently, but now it's like about 8 years ago. Whenever we first started, not even launched the Nomad with the player now, had the headphone amp and everything. And we were going through some stuff with VPI and life and whatever. I couldn't sleep. And it was like 2:00 in the morning, and I just wanted to listen to a record. And anyway, I put on a Red Hot Chili Peppers album, but it's like 2 a.m. And at the time I was in an apartment. I had this neighbor that if you sneezed after 9 o'clock, he was knocking on the door. So I throw my headphones on, and I'm sitting on the floor, and I was just like listening. And I just, you know, one of those nights where you just can't sleep no matter what. And by the time I got done, everything was better. You know, just like one of those, like that was the other moment where I was just like, yeah, this whole hi-fi thing really hits you. That was another one of those aha moments where I'm like, I really love this.
Music is an amazing thing. And so many of you that are out there get that. I know I do. It's absolutely changed my world from that wow moment. So tell us about a particular piece of music that moves you and why, and how did you find it?
Actually, I guess I said it too soon. Red Hot Chili Peppers. So the reason that stood out is because my brother, so John, he loved the Grateful Dead. He loved Santana. He loved Red Hot Chili Peppers. The Peppers is one he played a lot, and my brother John was a guitar player, so he'd also be like riffing like just a lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers albums and things like that. And the two ones that I liked was well, actually one I really liked was Under the Bridge by the Peppers, and so that one always moved me. And the other was Power of Equality. And with that specific, there's a little phrase in there that I always just found to be, and so I find because my brother, I always heard it through him. And when I found the album, like the actual record album, that was it stands out because that's the first time that I was excited to buy a record. When I saw it, I was like, because my dad wasn't listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers. Let's be honest. We did not own a Red Hot Chili Peppers record when I was growing up. I mean, yesterday we did a live stream and someone was requesting some Metallica. Hard rock. He puts on Metallica. He's like, I don't know why you guys listen to this crap. And he walked out. So I never owned I never heard a Red Hot Chili Peppers record up until that point. My brother had it on CD, dare I say. And when I saw that, I think it was at Rocky Mountain Audio Fest. Wow. Yeah, whatever. Wherever I bought it, I want to say it was at an audio show. But anyway, I saw that album and I was like, this is it. This is the record. And I was just so excited. It was one of like the first records I ever bought. And, so got it, played it. And one of the songs, Power of Equality, has this little phrase that it would make me feel good. Like not a phrase, like a whole section that it's talking like the singers talking to their little brother. Do you hear me? Have a heart. It's like the whole phrase thing. Wow. So I almost felt like, in a way, it was like John was talking to me through music.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Wow. So that's always been like one of those out there. I've got other albums I like, but that's always been one that just always hit me.
That's great to have those moments. And I know that every time you hear that song, the memories come back.
Yes. So absolutely.
I get that. All right. So who is or are your mentors in this business life?
First one, John Chen from Grado. That guy, you know what? There's a couple of moments, two in particular, I was ready to walk away. There was so much weight and pressure and everything on me. And I remember, actually, there's a quick check over here. Anyone who's ever visited VPI, that quick check, there was one day we had a whole bunch of messed up back end stuff happening. And I pulled into the quick check and I called up John. Actually, I was calling him to check up on an order because I don't remember what it was. We ordered a Grado cartridge and I called him up and he could tell I was like, something was up. And he was just like, well, what's going on? I'm like, I don't worry about it. He's like, no, what's going on? And I told him everything. And he just like focused, just like, this is what you're going to do. You're VPI, you're this, you're that, blah, blah, blah. We're behind you. And, and he just became the guy that I would always call. So John Chen had over at Grado, he helped me with a lot of advice, a lot of moments where I just didn't know what the heck I was doing. And he would just advise me through stuff and lots of great ideas, always supportive. And really those standout moments where I thought, I can't do this. What am I doing? I'm a tenured teacher. Screw this. I'm going back to the classroom. And he kind of walked me off the ledge a couple of times. And the other one, and when he hears this, I hope he doesn't get a big head. My UK distributor, this guy John Carroll, when he first came on, he was a miserable SOB. He would fight me on everything. The first year, I'd get off the phone with him. I'd be cursing up a storm. Just be like, what's he talking about? God damn it. How come I never do anything right? But then I'd sit and realize he's right. It would be things as far as consistency in the line. Functionality of certain things. Actually, a lot of items like, within the product line were things that he would point out. And then he would say, oh, no. I'm not finding fault in how it's being done. I just want to help make it better. The everything, whether it's ease on our side or anything. And what I really appreciated was no matter how bad it got, it occurred to me that he wasn't fighting me. He was just trying to help me. And it was, so yeah. So John Carroll, my distributor over in the UK, he was another mentor.
Sounds like he was trying to help you keep your focus.
Yes. Yeah,
Good.
he kept my focus. I feel like, John Chen, he kept me going when I thought I should walk away, and John Carroll kept my focus. And then of course my dad. My dad, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the amount of stuff that we've done together. Actually, really one of the proudest moments. And it wasn't the Prime. The Prime's the first table I did on my own. That I did so you would have confidence in me, the dealership, the customers. But the Prime signature, after I did the Prime, then it's like my dad and I started to design together. And I love it. The Prime signature, designing that with my dad, it was just, and he would explain it. Like I'd have an idea, he wouldn't just shoot it down. He would say, good, but I tried something like that back in the 80s and this happened and blah, blah, blah. But if we do this and I really love it. So he's been phenomenal. And I never thought I'd be doing this.
It's amazing how much experience plays.
Yes. Oh,
you get to experience that firsthand. So
yes.
do I guess, as well. Well, that's awesome. Thank you again for sharing that. Tell us about JMW and why we see this on so much of your arm names and those kind of things. And I really appreciate you sharing this.
Oh yeah, no. And the thing is, I don't love the reason why because of unfortunate stuff, but I do like to share just so we always felt, my mom, my family, we always felt that to keep someone alive is keeping the memory going, So JMW, which is our tone arm. So on the surface, it's known as our unipivot arm, the VPI arm that's 9, 10, 12 inches, 3D, all that's fun stuff. But it actually stands for Jonathan Matthew Weisfeld, my brother. Now, originally, John was the one who loved VPI. If you were to go back in history and you look at the two sons, I was the one eating crayons, and John was the one who was cutting school to go to VPI to build product. He loved it. And actually, we still have the last 2 or 3 cleaning machines he made. He would make cleaning machines. He'd make the HW19. He loved this industry. He lived and breathed music. John played the electric guitar, the acoustic guitar, the bass. Actually, the guitars I have here at the VPI house, they're his, and that's actually one of the regrets I have, that I never fully embraced guitar. I mean, I played the piano and the trombone, but, I kind of feel like it was kind of in my mind, I felt like that was John's thing. And, when I was little, I was like, we're going to have a band one day, so don't we all have that idea of be rock stars or something?
You got keyboards and guitar and bass together.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and a horn section.
Yes, we'll get it all in there. But John was really my motivation for so many things. John was originally the martial artist. John was the musician. John was the one who had just loaded with confidence. Did not matter. He used to get in trouble because he went to Homedale High School as well. During lunchtime, it was like a little bit of an open campus, and he had his guitar. And he was ripped. He was the guy who would go to, he was in the gym and everything else. And the football coach over at Homedale, he was all annoyed because my brother did not play football, but he was benching more than the football players. It's like, come on. And John would do things for him. It was like, no, I'm not doing this for anybody else. I'm doing it because I like it. He really went to the beat of his own drum. And, when he was in Homedale, he'd walk out with his acoustic guitar, sit in the middle of the courtyard, take off his shirt and start playing guitar until like one of the teachers ran out and be like, put your shirt on, whatever, He loved building. He loved all this stuff. He never had a chance to really do any of the audio shows, unfortunately, because at that stage of life, my mom and dad, they stopped going to audio shows because of raising us. And technology wasn't what it is now, so
Correct.
There was no Facebook or actually cell phones. Now that I'm thinking about it, at least not readily available.
Right.
And unfortunately,
trunk phones and
you walk around with like a brick or something.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when I was about 10 years old, John was unfortunately killed in a car accident on the way home. And so that was just had a massive impact. Unfortunately, a lot of the biggest things that have happened with VPI have been after tragedy. And in this case, before this happened, just to show as far as how much my brother loved VPI, he was working on the tone arm with my dad. So my dad and him were designing it together as far as like, the testing, like little, I don't know exactly what he did, but my dad and him worked on it in the basement. So it was also kind of nice where even though we had a factory now, a lot of the prototype stuff used to happen in our basement. So they'd go down there with a little drill press, mess with things. They'd do stuff. They'd go listen together. And then, oh, okay, this was good. Oh, this wasn't so good, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And after, unfortunately, the accident happened, that's how my dad coped with the loss. He threw himself right into finishing that arm, finishing the JM. Well, actually, the original name was the TNA. So a little bit of VPI history. You all may remember the TNT, the turntable. Mm-hmm. So my dad was so original with his names. When he made the TNT, he didn't know what to call with it. And so he's like, hey, you know what? We'll call it the TNT. Like, oh, what does it mean? The new turntable. So it was nice and simple with these acronyms. With the arm, because it was supposed to go on, it originally debuted, I believe, on the TNT. So when designing the arm, it was the TNA, the new arm.
Wow.
So, but after the accident, and with my dad finishing it, he ended up making it as a memorial to John, the JMW arm, JMW memorial arm. The memorial side is often dropped now in the discussion. And from there, we ended up making a scholarship where at the time, a portion of every tone arm would go into that fund, and then we'd give scholarships, and we still do it to today. We're not as organized as my mom was, so we just throw it in there and everything else, and we still give out scholarships, and well, with everything that's been going on the past year and whatnot, everything's been a little wacky, but just we use that as an opportunity for anything to keep my brother's memory alive. So
that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful thing y'all are doing. Seriously, it's been going on for a long time, and I'm pleased that I've had some ability to help with a little bit of those scholarships.
Yes, I would definitely say so. You've done good with that, Alan.
That's great. Thank you very much for sharing that. I know that's a kind of a tough thing to be sharing out there publicly, and I just really appreciate you doing that for the folks out there. So I want to take a little housekeeping break, and then we're going to get a little deeper into the VPI side of things. And Matt, thank you very much for sharing of yourself. I have on HiFi Chats here with HiFi Buys, I have Matt Weisfeld, who is president at VPI. I want to ask if y'all will to like and subscribe to the channel out there. You'll see on your screen where you can do that. Also, we have added your Red Hot Chili Peppers song to the playlist that we're doing. It's called a HiFi Chats playlist. So all the folks in the industry that have, shall we say, told us about their songs and that kind of thing, we're putting all that together in a playlist. Also, if you will, folks out there on the front line, please take care of yourself, and everybody else, please pay attention. Let's do our best to get out of this thing as fast as we can. And so I want to let y'all know that all the HiFi Chats are recorded and on the HiFi Buys YouTube channel. And finding last week we had Roger and JT from Sonos. Next week, I am not doing a HiFi Chats as it is my birthday, and I'll be up in the mountains visiting some wineries. And but I will on July 10th be back, which is again the following Friday. I'll have Garth Powell, who's with AudioQuest, and one of the biggest noise benefits that I've seen come out of a system in quite some time. He's been in charge of developing. So anyway, appreciate all that very, very much. So let's get into a little more with Matt here. What are the main reasons VPI is who they are, not what they are?
Oh, you're asking why?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, actually, you know what, Alan? Hold that thought. I completely forgot to reshare this to my page. So don't forget to check us out over on Facebook at the VPI Industries on Facebook and all the other fun stuff. And there we go. Just doing another share over here. Here we go. So now you all have no excuse to miss it. All right. All set there. Okay, I'm sorry. So the reason we are, why we are who we are is because the first thing is I feel that it's important that it stays in the family. I mentioned earlier how my dad had an opportunity to sell, and talk about going on Jewish guilt over here. So I mean, that's what I threw right on my dad when he was thinking about selling, and it was a good opportunity. And at the time, to be fair to my dad, I was a teacher. Mom was gone. Mom ran all of the office side. I learned later on that my dad really had no idea what he was doing in the office. He ran the floor. He made the turntables. I went in there, I'm like, hey, Dad, what do we do about this, this, and this? He was like, I don't know. But, so I got to the point where I told my dad, if we sell the company, this was heavy. It was like, we might as well dig up Mom and kill her again. So I mean, I really, a little extreme, but I got the point across that it's the family, and I even pointed out certain things where, how we don't, I was just saying this to one of the staff members this morning. So one of the newer guys who's starting to learn everything, he seems to be appreciating being here. And I told him that, actually the reasons, I just told him, we're not box movers. There is no quota. There is no number. I'm not going to come out there and be like, hey, you only made 5. You need to make another 20. That's not what we're about. It's about just coming in, doing the best we can, putting all that passion into it, and just really just wearing our heart on our sleeve. And that's how I've always tried to run the company. And I mean, I've had people tell me, well, Matt, you got to do this, this, and this. And I had one great moment. I was on Bloomberg Television a couple of years back, and the video's still out there. And he asked me point blank, Matt, why do you need a $30,000 turntable? And I said, the truth, you don't. Nobody needs a $30,000 table. We may want it. I mean, what am I talking about? This table here, we don't even fully know the price yet because of COVID. We're still figuring it out. But this guy's going to be in the $50,000, $60,000 range. This is unnecessary, but it sounds amazing. And, but anyway, with that, they asked me about a $30,000 table. And I said, oh, no, you don't need it. And then I start talking about the prime, and, which I know we'll get into later. I get off screen. I'm feeling so proud of myself with this interview. And my PR individual starts ripping me a new one. And my first thought was like, dude, I still sign your check, dial it back. And my second thought was like, and he was upset. He said, oh, you just talked down about your product and you need to market and this and that and blah, blah, blah. I thought that was on silent. Who did that? And so then I tell him that, no, we're not trying to just peddle a turntable. You're crazy. We got to, just be honest with the customer. If it's a customer who does need a $30,000 table, actually, Alan, I was watching one of your videos the other day about turntables, about people coming into your store and how, they can bring in. And so quick little plug, everybody, for HiFi buys. If you have a turntable, go to Alan. And, you can bring your table, you can put your table up against anything that Alan has there, even a VPI. And if it sounds better, then Alan's going to try to get you into it, because it's going to, if you like it. If it doesn't, then, Alan can help you, help guide you for things that you can do with your table. And that's going back to VPI. That's how I feel. When people ask me stuff, I ask them like, well, what do you want to do? What do you feel like? What are you comfortable with? It's just doing what you love. Actually, what I really love to do is I love telling people tricks to, shield your ears now, Alan. I try to tell them tricks to save from buying things. For example, the belt. How if your belt hasn't broken yet, but it's like getting to that point, you throw it. Somebody says, "Oh man, I think I got to buy a new belt." So did you try the water trick yet? Like, no. What's the water trick? And you throw it in a pot of boiling water for 10 seconds, wipe it down with rubbing alcohol, and it's the fountain of youth of belts. If that works, you're good. And if it doesn't, you got to buy it. But then I jokingly say, do that, save the money, and buy more records. So then go to you, Alan, and buy some records over there. So,
Yep.
And that's, I think, one of the reasons. To me, everyone's part of the family. I actually do get emotional about it in the sense that if I see a customer is really upset, I'm like, God, man, how can I make this guy right? How can I make this right over here? And I don't think anybody wakes up and says, how can I screw somebody over today?
Right.
This is not happening. So, yeah, family run still. I mean, I love the fact that my daughter runs around the office, not so much now because of COVID, but I love that my wife Jane's there. I love that my dad's there. Heck, my father-in-law, he's the guy who makes the cleaning machines. It's so cool about this stuff. I got my brother-in-law. I mean, he's a student, but he loves coming in kind of like as like internship type things, and he told me how he hopes after school to come back and be the electrical engineer. I love it. I love the fact that my family's there. I love the fact that like I get home and Jane and I are able to keep it separate, as far as leaving it there, or I don't know, being able to talk about it without going crazy. And kind of another little random story. When I first started dating Jane and I have had very few fights, and they've always been over like misunderstandings, communication. And for those who don't know, my wife Jane's Chinese, and now her English is great now. But when we first started dating, not so great. I just had like the worst day at VPI. I'm dating Jane just a couple of months, barely anything. We're still like getting to know each other. She's over my apartment, and I go there, and I'm just in a bad mood. And she's thinking, and I'm trying to explain that no, it was an Aries. It was something with the Aries turntable. And I'm trying to explain it. I'm being totally overly technical. Wasn't being smart about it at all. Jane's not understanding, and she's just trying to fix it. And then finally, she walks out, because it's my fault. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, geez, she doesn't even know she doesn't understand what an Aries table is. Then, so I get her back, we talk and everything else. All said and done, kiss and make up. 1 year later, she's now working at VPI. And I'm driving home, and it stands out because, again, ironically, it was something with an Aries. Well, actually, I'll just tell you, there's been confusion over the years because, as you know, Alan, we had the Aries 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it was a 10-inch, sometimes it was a 12-inch. And both of these cases were when a customer thought they had one, but they had the other. And then it was a nightmare because, like, this 12-inch arm's not working on the 10-inch, whatever. And we're driving home, and I'm ranting about the whole thing. And Jane, she starts laughing. I'm like, Jane, what are you laughing about? This is a serious thing. And she was like, because I understand everything you're talking about, and I'm just as pissed off as you. And we just both then cracked. It was so nice. It like deflated the whole situation. We laughed about it, and it was nice. I was like, wow, I've got my partner. I've got my wife who could share my pain, understand the situation. And I just
when you have somebody. Nice that when you have somebody that you can talk to about what's going on and that kind of thing and what kind of issues you're having and so on, and having them actually understand, because it is, there's a lot of intricate things that you deal with, and also a lot of history. So
yeah, oh yeah, and there's a lot of stuff. I'll tell you, I really just don't think that I could have done what has happened so far without Jane's support and having someone for that, be able to just go home and everything else, and just have her understand, and
she's a very sweet lady. You're very, very lucky. I loved it when y'all did your big travel down to Atlanta.
Yep, that was a good time, and we're gonna have to head back down there. We miss you guys over there. Once the world opens back up, like
12 hours or something, I think.
We will fly next time. I will never drive down to you again, Alan. That was a little too much, but
that's okay. I'll pick you up at the airport.
And you could maybe meet the next one.
There you go. Look forward to that. All right. So, how have the products evolved as the world has evolved?
Well, initially, and actually, I'm going to give another hat tip to John Chen, and also John Carroll to an extent. But the first thing of the evolving was making more consistency and having more of a set amount of. When I came in, we had like 25 products. We had like 25 different tables. You had the Scoutmaster. I'm sorry, the three that really drove people crazy. I'm sure they must have driven you nuts back in the day. We had the Scout 2, and I think it was like 2,800. We had the Classic at 3,000, and the Scoutmaster at like 3,200. Three completely different turntables, all like in the same price range, and they were all good, but for the customer side, that they're too close. It was and I remember there was one time where a customer, and again, it could have been one of yours, where they got one of the tables, then they got it home and they decided, oh man, I really wanted that other one, and there's just like, it was just too many choices, and each of them were different. Like the Scout had a 9-inch arm, the Classic had a 10-inch, the Scoutmaster had a 9-inch. So that was the first evolution, standardization of the parts. The platters. Now, all the platters are the same. And I see on Facebook sometimes people posting pictures of, hey, I have this. I'm like, oh, that's an older bearing. We used to have 3 different length bearings for our Classic platter. I'm going to say classic because once we get to the prime, it was all the same. And I'm looking at them, and from an engineering and precision standpoint, they're the same. But from a fitting standpoint and from a manufacturing in the building, they were all their own little jobs. So we had to order like 100 of this and 200 of that and whatever. Oh, we need 10 of those. And it was a nightmare for consistency where, we'd send you a replacement part and be like, hey, Matt, this one doesn't fit. We sent you the long one. You need the short one. It's a nightmare. So that was the first evolution where, like with the platter, we found that if we just use the middle length bearing, it fits for all the sizes. And to explain a little more why, there'd be different lengths because of the thickness of the chassis, the Scout being like 1 inch, the Classic being a lot thicker. So just to accommodate. So then we found ways to just have more streamlined aspects to the product line and just having lean manufacturing. So that was the first evolution of just making it so when you take a VTA base on a VPI, it can drop on with very little modification on all of the items because we've always been upgradable. The next evolution, which I'd say the big one, was the 3D arm. We're going for a 3D material type arm. That was the best. And when I had my PR guy, he said, never tell him the truth on this, but I'm going to tell you the truth. That was the best accident I ever had. I was a teacher. And what's kind of ironic is I'd say that I've used all of my teaching or experiences from being a teacher. It's all applied to VPI. When I was teaching a 3D modeling class in Homedale High School. And I used to use my dad's designs just to give the kids a real life connection. I always hated busy work. I loved real work. Same with my students. And on this day, I had the JMW arm and they were doing a 3D model. Now they weren't 3D printing it, but still it was in CAD. It was great. And then that night, my dad and I are over at Harold's Deli having a corned beef sandwich. And my dad was working on what actually later ends up being I'm looking at it, the tone arm that I'm posting pictures about, like the Fat Boy gimbal, our gimbal arm, all that stuff. But at the time, it wasn't there yet. And then I'm like, Dad, I'm eating, what are we 3D print the reference thing? Spitting corned beef everywhere and all that stuff. And my dad's like, that's not a bad idea. So we tried it. We 3D. Hold on. I actually have it. I just found it.
Love his enthusiasm.
Wow, good timing on this. This is the first 3D printed tone arm that we did.
Wow.
It's just so happy we had it. So we 3D printed. I mean, it's like now discolored and everything at this point because this is like about 6 years old. We with COVID going on, we've had a lot of time to do some house cleaning over here. So we've been finding stuff. So we came across this the other day, and so we did it. We printed it, and then we wired it up, and we went to go listen, and immediately from the first listen, it just blew away our standard at the time. And that's what led to us getting more into it. And I also love the fact that with the 3D arm, the JMW, I was able to become part of the arm my dad and brother made. I was able to be a part of that whole thing where now with that, because I've had in the past people say, wow, you designed that. I didn't really design it. I just had the idea of the material. The design, that's still my dad and brother. So
material is part of design too.
Yes. Yeah. So, so that was the next evolution as far as our 3D printing. But it was the prime that really set it apart because initially when we 3D printed, that printing is very difficult. It's a 24-hour process. There's also, it prints for 24 hours. Then it's got to get blasted to get all the stuff off. Then it's got to get cured so that there's no moisture. It's like a week before you even see it. Then we have to wire it up and do the rest of it. So initially when we did it, it was so difficult because we were, and frankly expensive because we were printing one at a time. Once we started doing the prime, that's when we started printing in mass volume, and we went back to the idea of printing it in a similar way to how the original arm was made.
Wow. My understanding of 3D printing is that there's some natural dampening characteristics that happen within 3D printing.
Yes. So now initially, like with this one, it's all 3D printed as one piece. And so with that, it's just dead. It's dead sound. Jeez. Sorry about that, Alan. So it's all dead. It's just one piece. And now what the arm is made of, it is an epoxy resin. And I tell people when I don't share the material, it's not even to be super secretive. It's just that it's gone through so much of an evolution that I really couldn't even tell you at this point anymore. It being heat resistant, UV light resistant, and it's dead. It's called a tone arm, but there's no tone. You go to listen to it, and it's like the arm just gets out of the way unless the cartridge do its job. So and what we did find in recent years, hence with the Fat Boy, all the magic, it's in the tube. We did a lot of testing, and actually, I'm not going to do it, but I can run and find all of them because most of the prototypes are here at the VPI house, because this is where we do the listening. This is where we do the heavy duty, when we do the measuring, we do all that stuff at the factory, which is down the street. Once we get to the point of, okay, it measures great, how does it sound? Every product that has ever come out for VPI, we measure it there at the factory. We do all the standard due diligence on the engineering side. Then, believe it or not, Alan, I just realized it's in your backyard. We send our product down to Georgia because we have a testing facility right by you that blows everything up. Like that's basically we pay them to take our product and blow it up or try to find it, for the certification, CE, RoHS, all that stuff. I did a funny Facebook post a few years back that no one understood. Where I took a picture of a prime and I wrote, "We'd like to thank this prime for its dedication and sacrifice for the cause." That prime was destroyed. They actually hit it, and the guy was explaining it to me. They basically hit it with a bolt of lightning to see what happened. So all that stuff happens with this. And so when in the midst of it with the 3D arm, we discovered that all the magic was in the tube, which is what led to us then being able to experiment with the Fat Boy. Then with the measuring, we found that by making the shape a triangular to rounded shape led to more resonance canceling and measured even better. So, and that goes along with how the technology's improved, and just overall our engineering, our checks and balances on things, and just took everything to the next level, or tried to.
Fantastic. Well, it's amazing how manufacturing techniques have helped us hit another levels, and that's true throughout our industry and as well as any other industry. So anyway, it's great to have your mind open and finding those things. So anyway, great job on that.
Thank you. We certainly try with this.
So I know that it shows and things along that lines. I know you have a lot of customers, very loyal group of customers out there. I think it shows pretty heavily, especially on the VPI Lovers Facebook group. Chris, if you don't mind, put a link out there for him on that. And I would appreciate it. Another thing I wanted to ask y'all, if you would, please ask questions. We're going to do Q&A at the end of this. Chris, if you'll put up a little thing there so that folks can be able to type their question in. I'd appreciate it. And again, if y'all would like and subscribe to the channel. So,
nice.
So one of the things you end up finding, you have several levels of products, okay? Let's start off with like the performance turntables, and then we'll move to the reference level in a little bit. But I believe your entry table is called the Cliffwood. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the Cliffwood table, that was really, we just wanted to challenge the idea of being able to make an entry-level table in America that, and of course there are other entry-level, but high performance and stay at that $1,000 marker. And we initially, well, in a way it kind of came from the player, but we'll get back with that later. And it was a challenge of, can it be done? And my dad and I were kind of just, again, shooting the breeze over our conference table. Then we just start running out and like grabbing different components. And we pulled an arm off of the Nomad. We pull a platter off of a Scout Junior. We just grabbed, actually the original chassis was a Super Scoutmaster, a complete damaged garbage Super Scoutmaster chassis. We grabbed that. My dad starts drilling holes. I'm throwing out ideas. What if we this? And while I'm saying it, I'm like, okay, well that costs about this, and that costs this. Okay, that takes about, ooh, that's a little tough, whatever, and we're like talking and building and everything else. So we make this Frankenstein. Actually, it was really ugly. The first one, it looked awful. I mean, just imagine that square Scoutmaster chassis with all these holes, everything, just stuff just mashed in. And then we're like, wait, did we just do it? Did we just make an entry-level high-end table? And so then we took the concept and then we actually did one. And it was just in time for the Montreal show. And so once we threw that together, we brought it to the Montreal show, and we did a bit of like a, hey world, should we do this? And the feedback we got at the Montreal show was just fantastic. Everybody loved it. And I did a little Facebook post and everything. And I'm like, I think we're doing this. And what do we call it? And my dad's coming up with all these names, like, the Challenger. Maybe not. Like all sorts of things out there. And then I'm like, no, the Cliffwood. It's made in Cliffwood, New Jersey. It was like, because there is you take a lot of other brands, and I won't say who, but like brands that are made in America or made in whatever the respective company. But once it goes to the entry level, oh well, that one is made overseas. And that being said, there is a lot of phenomenal product made overseas. That's a whole other topic in itself. But just staying to the core of our product being made in America, is important. And with the naming, it's the Cliffwood, made in Cliffwood, America, right here. If you count Jersey as part of America.
I love that. That's awesome that you've been able to stick to your guns and stay with the culture, and to be able to build something in an entry level. So the next one up is player. What do we gain going from a Cliffwood to a player?
So with the player, the big thing with that is just it's an all-in-one. Now the Cliffwood is technically an all-in-one because you have the cartridge mounted, you have the arm and everything else, but you don't have your electronics. You don't have the phono stage, you don't have the headphone amp, you don't have any of that other stuff. And actually a kind of a fun story, a dealer, I won't say who, but had a situation where, well, it was a famous person. Rachel Ray walks in to buy a table. Well, no, not to buy a table, but was buying all sorts of other stuff. I don't even know if I was supposed to say the person's name, but whatever, I did. So they come in to buy a whole bunch of other stuff. And they end up seeing a Prime. She says, well, I already said it's Rachel Ray. She sees the Prime. She loves it. It's like, I'll take 2 of those. And then the salesman's like, well, Miss Ray, do you have a phono stage? Or rather, the individual got a little too techie about phono stages and all that stuff. She's just like, I just want a turntable. And the moral is, ends up, I don't know exactly what happened, but it ended up not being a Prime. It all just like, went a little nuts with that stuff. But it was just like one of those situations where it just proved that someone starting off, they need to have all the stuff ready. Because, you get involved with this, like, what's a phono stage? What's a cartridge? I remember when talking to somebody at one of the shows, it was an entry-level audiophile. He was asking about all sorts of stuff about tables. He says, oh, well, what about the VPI cartridge? This is before we had a cartridge or any thought of it. I was like, oh, well, you'd want an Autophon or a Grado, or like, what's that? Right. Because realistically, people who just start, they don't know a lot of these brands at this point because it's not in their wheelhouse. So with the player, it's the same concept of the Cliffwood. Same type of arm. It's a gimbaled arm. It's got the machined aluminum platter, and we're all about machined aluminum platters. When one time we used acrylic and plastics we feel are not the best, but times change. So the player is a Cliffwood with a built-in headphone amp that's defeatable, and it's built-in phono stage that's defeatable. That's a moving magnet, and the built-in headphone amp. And what I like, and this is kind of funny, being the owner of VPI, that's my main table. The main system I use at home in my office, well, not my main system, but I'm mainly in my office. So, well, Alan, what's the system that you're going to be using most? Your office system. So my system right now, hooked up at my house, is a white player hooked up to a pair of powered Kef LS50s that are also white. And that's the main one I use because that's where I am all the time. So it's out of the box. You're good. Actually, Steve Rockland with Enjoy the Music years ago at again, I think it was Rocky Mountain, set up a video like this just to do an open box for the player. And he gives, okay, man, you have 30 minutes, you got this and that. I'm like, ooh, 30 minutes. What else am I supposed to talk about? No, it's all for the unboxing. Take your time, go for the setup, this and that. So you go to do it. I struggle about 5 minutes to open the box. I get it out, I put it down, and Steve's like, okay, it's great, man. Now what? I'm like, we're done. And then the video, which is probably still out there somewhere, we spent the rest of the video just BSing about audio.
That's awesome. So the Cliffwood and the player have a lot in common. The player adds the headphone amp as well as the phono stage. So it kind of gives you an all-in-one if you want. And at the same time, you can have it without the products in the cliffwood. So the next turntable up, we basically get into the prime area where we start off with the prime scout, the prime, and then the prime signature. So tell us a little bit about those tables as we kind of start with the prime scout and go up.
Yeah, so the prime scout, that actually is it's a relative of the scout. The scout table, actually it got the nickname of being called the gentle giant, the humble giant, whatever it was, something giant, because that table originally when it started, and again, this is going back 15 years, so I think we did pretty good at staying within the price point. That was an $1,800 table, and with one of the magazines against another brand of turntable, I won't say who to be politically correct, it ended up tying for product of the year against a $30,000 turntable. That's when it earned the nickname of being the humble giant, since that's, you know, an $1,800 table, even coming close to a table of that price. And the Scout, the initial concept of the Scout was just to be, because now you're in high end. I mean, the Cliffwood and the Player, they're good, but that's meant to really be that high end flavor to get in there. Once you get to the Scout, Prime Scout, now you have like a full performance level, like, or at least what that core concept of being able to upgrade easily, the outbound motor and everything. And we do kind of call it at that point like the performance line. And it's the main focus of the Scout. And now Prime Scout has always been bang for the buck, where it's a table that punches well above its price point. And with the evolution of it, we went from the Scout to the Prime Scout to just go along, first off, update it with like our new technology, our better precision with things, and just to have that clean look, because the Prime Scout was actually the last of the Prime series that we introduced. Since we started with the Prime, which we'll get to the Prime Signature. And I'm looking at the three tables: rectangular shape, curve shape. It looked out of place. It was time for a facelift, and we took what we've learned in the past couple of years, just to give the Prime Scout a facelift, better isolation with the feet, a better motor housing. Oh, and the big one was the 300 RPM motor. This is something we learned kind of by accident. So I think everyone knows that VPI has a relationship and a partnership rather with Shinola, and we build their table as well. So, oh my God, time. This was about 5 years ago now. We did an audit of ourselves just to make sure about what was actually made in America. Because, you know, obviously our product's made in America, but things change over the years. Ownership and suppliers change. So we just wanted to make sure. We get to the motor, and we used to be a 600 RPM motor in the Scout. And long story short, we find out that our 300 RPM motor is actually made in America, whereas the 600 is made in Mexico, which is fine. We actually thought all of our motors were made in Mexico because that's how it's always been. And about 15 years ago now, whatever it was, factory moved to America. So that's when we were like, you know what? We're going to put this motor in the Prime Scout. So that way, Prime Scout on up, it's even higher on the American-made standpoint. Let me just say it this way, that our percentage of made-in-America components are so high that the guy who did the audit said, you know, Matt, you can really get some more parts made overseas. I'm like, no, we're good. We're good. I like it being up there. So the Prime Scout, the overall concept is the bang for the buck, entry level on the performance side, outbound motor with the 300 RPM motor, that Scout thick platter, and then a JMW unipivot arm and the improved isolation. And the feet on the Prime Scout take a page out of the original classic Delrin isolation feet.
Yep. It's a good looking table. I mean, it's really an exceptionally good looking table, especially at the entry level part of the market, at least, you know, in performance tables. So,
and actually another thing to throw out there about the Scout and with the Prime Scout, that's actually kind of a living memorial to my mom, since my mom was the Girl Scout of the family. So one of the reasons why I love the Prime Scout.
That's awesome. All right. So we've talked a little bit about the Prime and the process of this with the Scout. So let's talk about the Prime to the Prime Signature.
Yes. So with the Prime, that was the table I felt like I need to design something on my own. It's got to be me. I need to show the world that if my dad goes to Florida and retires and disappears and everything else, we're still good.
Yep.
So I looked at it, and the Prime is pretty much just the best ideas of VPI over the past 40 some odd years, where I took the concept of the isolation from an HW19. I took the tone arm, from a TNT. I took the platter from a Classic, the outbound motor from an Aries, the chassis like a Scout but thicker, and then the 3D arm was my take of having it the JFW arm made with that 3D material. And I really wanted that to be, because when we did the Prime, we had just come off of really focusing on the Traveler and entry level and everything else. And that's why I learned that entry level is a lot more difficult than I had anticipated.
Yep.
And I wanted to get back to our roots of having that like middle of the road product, which is what the Prime is of our line. That table where, again, punching well above its price point. It has the VTA on the fly. It has the performance. It just has all the checks marked off on the list, and that you can just get into right away and just be. And actually, when we were working with Mark Levinson initially, they borrowed the table. They borrowed the Prime. They used it in a couple of shoots and shows. And they reached out to me. They were like, Matt, this is really a heck of a table. Hey, what's the retail of this? We want to list it. Is this, what is it, like 8,000? And I'm like, oh, bless your heart. Wow. I asked, like, do you think it's an $8,000 table? Like, well, I mean, it seems like it. And that's when, because it's at, it has gone up a touch in the beginning, but, being at the, what is it, Alan, how much is my table? 4,000?
Well, the Prime 4, yes.
Yeah. So, so the idea of being in that ballpark where you think it's an $8,000 table. And so that was the table I did on my own. Then with the Signature going into that, the Signature just takes all the concepts of the Prime, then slightly elevates it. Having the sandwich chassis of having the MDF, machined aluminum MDF sandwich resonance canceling chassis, having the improved isolation feet like originally on the Classic Signature. The motor pod is that stainless steel pod that you can, that's like a shot put. Right. And then with the tone arm, it's the same 3D printed concept, but with that, it's using the Nordos reference wire instead, for example. So it's the same concept of a Prime, but all the parts have been elevated.
And it's something you can really hear the difference between too, especially all three of these tables. You go from Prime Scout to Prime Signature. Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy, without a doubt, to tell the difference as you go up that line. So again, if anybody needs to have that experience, we're happy to show it to you.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to take just a quick housekeeping break, and then we're going to get a little further into a couple of things that I have personal questions about with VPI. And then also we're going to get into the Avenger and, of course, the Titan turntable as well. So I will ask you guys to like and subscribe out there. If you will, Chris, put up the little thing so that they can ask questions. Y'all please ask all the questions you want. Matt's kind enough to handle those questions. And shall we say, if you will, go to hifibuys.com and check into our newsletter there. We'd appreciate it very much. Again, next week, HiFi Chats will not happen, as I'll be up in the mountains on my birthday with my dog HiFi. But on July 10th, we're going to have Garth Powell with AudioQuest here as well. So again, I want to thank Matt Weisfeld for being here today. He is president at VPI. And so we're going to get into a few more things here and get into some of the upper parts of the table line. So before we go further in the product range, tell me what sets VPI apart from the crowd of products in this turntable world today?
Well, I think the first thing is that I was told by one of the companies we worked with, one of the partner companies that we were with, we're driving back from my machine shop. Out of nowhere, he says, I really envy you. And, I'm not going to say he would be politically correct and everything else, but, and then I'm like, what are you kidding me? You're this like massive behemoth of a company. What do you envy me for? And this is like one of the guys who's higher up there in this specific company. He said, Matt, because way VPI is, you can wake up tomorrow and get like, a cold wind can come in. And that's all it takes for you to decide that you want to change your whole product line. You want to do whatever you want. The fact that, and what he was getting at is that there's no shareholders. There's no like, we need to meet the marketing numbers or any of that stuff. I'm going to be honest, like we really don't even go by that stuff. We go by what people like and care about. And when he said that, though, it really hit me because it's true. We have a lot of flexibility. Our direct drive table, which we'll talk about a little later, we really did that. I mean, the first one, yeah, of course we did that, but took a break. But our anniversary table, we brought that together in under a year. And it started because I read a post online that kind of got my dad and I a little annoyed. And that was when we were like, that's it, we're doing it. And in under a year, We went through all of the engineering, the research and development, the prototyping, and then bringing it to production. I mean, that happened in April, and we had 7 functional production-ready prototypes at Capitol Audio Fest, which was November. That's a
Wow.
short span. And, so I think one of the things that set us apart, again, the fact that it's family. And the other thing is that it's got that focus that we don't have shareholders, we don't have people we have to appease, and we don't have bean counters. I won't say other brands, but there's another brand out there that makes a phenomenal turntable. They really do. But the second the bean counters are finding that it's not profitable, they're going to be gone. They're going to disappear again. And then, to give you an idea, there was a customer who bought a Titan. The dealer reached out, and Alan, by the way, same thing goes for you. We offer that if there's ever for those out there watching, if you can convince your dealer to do it, you guys are always welcome to come out here to the VPI house. And in this case, the dealer was working with this individual, and he was interested in a Titan. So the two of them come out, we demo the Titan, and there was basically we just all hung out because he knew the second he walked in the door, he was buying it. And the reason why is because he had a super price, super table in the past. 5 years later, they went out of business because they just didn't want to do it anymore. And he had a boat anchor. He needed some service. And that super expensive $40,000 table he had ended up just being, well, like I said before, a boat anchor. Whereas with us, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be around for another, I jokingly say 40 years. I got my daughter Shyla in here. If anyone watched our Instagram live thing the other day, I mean, I was just sitting there listening, and Shyla runs up and she starts dancing. She loves listening. She loves, being a part of this stuff.
So when are we going to see the Shyla turntable?
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, we do have somewhere the Shyla cartridge, so I'll
Yes.
find that at some point. But we're in it for the long run. We have a 5-year warranty. You have real people making it. And things we care. When the other day somebody called up, I answered the phone, and they were like, "Wait, who are you?" I'm like, I'm Matt Weisfeld. They're like, well, "What are you doing talking to me?" I'm like, well, "What do you mean?" I'm thinking like, well, "I'm sorry, what did I do?" He's like, "You're the owner of the company." I'm like, "Yeah, what are you talking to me for?" It's like, "Because you have a question. Let me help you." This I am, I have become a little more difficult to get because I'm always crazy and busy. But when I'm not answering the phone, it's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm doing a really cool live stream with you, Alan. It's
Well, I appreciate again your time. I know how busy you are, and this has also been a big thing for my schedule. But quite honestly, I love doing these things. I love learning about you guys, and I love the other folks learning about all of us. So it's actually been a lot of fun. We've actually had a lot of calls to the store and that kind of thing about these events as well.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and actually, I did see someone ask. This is actually called the Vanquish. This table. So we'll get to that later. This is at the super uber top end of our
Okay. We're getting ready to go down that road. So do you make 2 types of arms? One is the unipivot and the other gimbal. So
yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you feel about, I guess one versus the other, and what the advantages might be of one versus the other.
So initially, my dad did the unipivot design to begin with. Now, when he first made this arm, this is, again, going back like almost 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. And, there was a lot of gimbals out there and everything. And my dad was never really happy at the time with the gimbal arms. I mean, they were good, but he wanted something different. And what he found when he was doing the testing with my brother with the unipivots, that because of the lack of friction, it's friction, it's nearly frictionless. I mean, if you think about it, you have this whole arm. Well, I'll use this guy as the example. I mean, just being balanced on a small point here.
Yep.
And a cartridge style is right there. I mean, it's kind of wild. And so we always preferred that. Now, the unipivot is a lot more frustrating to set up. Alan, I know you've done it.
Yep.
I'll bet if someone, gave you a choice, "Hey, Alan, you want to set up a unipivot or a gimbal?" You'll take the gimbal because it's easier. But with the unipivot, it's because of being frictionless and just how, especially with our design, the detail and dynamics that you get. I mean, a unipivot arm just like goes right through those grooves and pulls out all the information. I've gotten used to a unipivot at this point, but I remember when I was younger, yeah, it was a little bit intimidating to start with initially. But once you get used to that feel of a unipivot, it's really fantastic, and then with our gimbal, just to kind of touch upon both and then explain the purpose of each. with the gimbal, that actually started, it's kind of funny. It started about 9 years ago when I was over Dad's. We were listening on the Classic 4, 12-inch unipivot, and it was late. Had a little to drink, and my dad was spinning on using a Lyra Atlas. As we know, that's not exactly a cheap cartridge. I think it's 12,000 now, maybe 10 at the time. But so Dad reached for the arm and missed, and just gently bounced it, and the unipivot bounced away, and that's when he reached for it. His Lyra Atlas was like this close from getting sheared right off, and that's when he's like, "That's it, I'm done with the unipivot. We gotta go gimbal." I'm like, "Dad, you don't really like gimbal very much." "I don't care. We're going." So that was like it was kind of a comical moment and everything else. But it was one of those starting things, and my dad always did like the old Japanese designs of like he loved the luster, the gimbal luster arm. He liked, geez, Jelco. The Jelco was a staple arm on all HW19s back in the day before we had our own.
Yep.
He did that. Just a whole bunch of gimbal arms out there. So then he started to initially, my dad wanted to reproduce a Techniques arm with corrections. Then halfway through, though, we just went in so many different directions, or rather we focused our overall direction with it. And the other thing was the first gimbal we made was with the Traveler, because we found that from an entry-level standpoint, the unipivot is a horrible idea. Having any entry-level customer who's not ready for that paradigm, unipivot's not a good way to start. You can turn something off. So that's why we went gimbal for the Traveler. And we found that, well, actually, we learned things that people did to their arm that we never thought they would do to it, even with a gimbal. So it was educational for us. And so the gimbal was just a lot easier to work with. And then and even like with audio shows, you'll notice that almost every audio show, VPI is almost always using a gimbal now. Because whenever we have a unipivot, 50-50 shot, and I say this with love, any of you other fellow manufacturers out there, 50-50 shot, they were going to wipe our cartridge when it was a unipivot. When it was a gimbal, our cartridges always came back fine. So just from a usability standpoint. From a sonic standpoint, we found that the gimbal had like a little more warmth, a little bit more of a wider sound stage. And it's the best way to describe it is as far as like, which is better, neither. Red wine versus white wine. It's a preference. We did the other day, oh my God, like a year ago, we had the whole VPI staff in here and we did a comparison. We had Audio-Technica OC9 on a unipivot Fat Boy and a gimbal Fat Boy. We listened to the same thing. It was almost an even split. Some preferred the gimbal, some preferred the unipivot. It was just a difference. And the main reason that I really liked the idea that my dad initially started it and then we really pursued it is because it's not for everybody, a unipivot. Or rather, someone hates a gimbal, or rather, if someone likes the concept of a VPI table, but they don't like our unipivot, fine, awesome, we'll get you the gimbal. You don't like the gimbal? Great, unipivot. We don't want to have somebody lose an opportunity to be part of the family because we don't have what they're looking for as far as an offering.
Right. Well, that's awesome. And I like the idea that just say both are capable of playing a fine record. And I've always found that to be true as well. I do find the unipivot for some is uncomfortable, but not for many. And I think once people do use it, they find it to be very comfortable. So I know I found that over my years. So I get that. So we are going to talk a little bit about the reference line. We've got the Avenger and Titan turntables, and then we've even got something north of that. But before we even get there, there is an anniversary table that I know I've had the pleasure of selling a customer or two here. They've been very proud owners of their turntables, and that's called the HW40. So tell us a little bit about that before we get into the Avengers.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. The HW40. So when we were coming up on our anniversary table, we spent so much time figuring out what should it be. People were suggesting do an HW19, do a TNT. All these ideas came out there. And then what really got us going and thinking about it was, what was the first actual table? And everybody thinks the first table at VPI was the 19. But as I was mentioning before, it was the actual HW9, which was an isolation base that my dad made for fun that had a Denon direct drive. and again, the luster gimbal arm on it with a dust cover. So that's when we thought that'd be really cool to go back and make the first table that my dad made, but where it's our motor, our tone arm, our everything, just going forward with that. And we've gotten much better with our isolation since the original days, and with our HW40 feet and everything. So we looked at that, and then that it just kind of seemed right. But then the next challenge was, because we already did it, we had the Classic Direct, which we released about 7-8 years ago now.
Right.
That was $30,000. That's the table I was talking about before. That's a very hefty pill to swallow. But the Classic Direct was very expensive to make. Sorry about that. Oh, actually, we may have a surprise. We may have a surprise guest. That was Harry. He said that he wasn't sure if he was going to join or not. So, we'll see. So he may show up. But regardless, so with the Classic Direct, the components, the design, the everything. And the other problem was it was the first time we did it with the Classic Direct. So we didn't really make it the most efficient in the sense of being built. So there were aspects that were it was very costly to get it done. And we did it in a very small number. That was the big aspect, because when we did the Classic Direct originally, that's going back 8 years ago. That's when VPI hadn't even dipped their toe into a product over $10,000, $15,000. So, we were making them in a batch of 5 at a time. So actually, I think even less now that I'm thinking about it. So with the 40, we took our original engineering and design, and with the whole team and everything, we just our engineer Mike Bettinger, my dad, everyone, my guy Jan, we brought back that concept of the Classic Direct, but at a more affordable price tag. And again, $15,000 is a lot, but how often do companies do that, where they take their flagship, bring it back in for $15,000 for half the price, and more options and more items? So, and having a Fat Boy arm in there, having our HW40 feet, having an included dust cover. And we thought that would be the tribute. Now, Alan, there's only a few left. So the only, I don't want to say good thing, but basically the HW40, had COVID not happened, would have been gone at this point. Yep. Pre-COVID-19, we got to the point where we locked in, okay, save these so that we have some left. And then unfortunately, as we know, with everything that happened with the world, it's not that anything's technically canceled. Technically, everything's just on hold for indefinitely. So they're still out there, guys. So anyone who's wants to get a taste of that HW40 anniversary flavor, because once those are gone, we made 400, and after the 400, they're gone.
Yep. Great value table. We put some pretty awesome cartridges on them, and that thing's really been received well. I've really loved what we've heard on them. So, and I know the customers, and I know I've got one listening that we'll probably get a question from that owns one as well. So, well, I think it's always wonderful to commemorate your anniversaries and that kind of thing. My guys actually gave me a little plaque that's right back there behind me. You can see right there.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah,
my guys, we celebrated 25 years, and the guys were pretty cool to recognize my 25 years in business. And anyway, that was a real neat deal. I don't make products, so that was it. but it was awesome. So
nice.
So let's get into the Avenger. We have the Avenger Plus, and the Avenger Reference. Tell us a little about those 3 tables and how they graduate through.
So that actually was another cool thing that happened while cleaning out the VPI warehouse a couple of years back. So we were done with the Classic Direct, but we felt that we needed another flagship level type of table. And so I'm talking to this my dad, and my dad's like, oh, I don't know, he didn't really want to think of a super table. And I'm going through the warehouse, and I find this completely dust-caked box. It just has a magic marker, the Tripod Project. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, what the heck is this? I pop it open, and now initially it was an acrylic cover, acrylic platter, and a bunch of other different items. And so I open it up, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? And it was what would later be the Avenger. And I asked my dad, and he says, oh yeah, I forgot about that. What had happened was my dad was working on that 20 years ago. And then 20 years ago, 15, whatever it was, whenever the first crash hit, That happened right when he was working on the tripod project. And that's when the world did not need a super expensive turntable. So instead, he got rid of that. And that's when he kind of got looking into the old classic tables, which led to him making the classic instead. So the reason you all never saw the early day Avenger was because it just ended up being the idea just switched to a classic look instead. But with the Avenger, the first model, what I love about the Avenger, and also why this Vanquish back here shares this shape, it's a sandbox. It's the only table. Well, I mean, I think it's the only table that you can literally do anything with. 9-inch arm, 10-inch arm, 12-inch arm, VPI arm, other brand. Pick a brand, you can throw it on. And we are very cool about other brands in general. You know, you want to use someone else's arm, great, as long as you're enjoying your listening experience. And with the base Avenger, you have a standard 12-inch 3D printed arm. You have the stainless steel pod that comes from a prime signature. You have those signature feet, and then the chassis itself is an acrylic, aluminum, acrylic sandwich, again for resonance canceling. And then a big old bearing, which is exactly what was on the HRX for your standard Avenger. And that just gives you that baseline model so that you can start and get into the reference line. But then you can fully upgrade. We actually, I don't know how it all went, but we even have someone who eventually upgraded from an Avenger right onto a Titan level. Now, so, I mean, and technically, if you do it in steps like that, it probably ends up being more expensive in the long run, but you're able to do it in the long run. You're able to do it over time. So you start with the Avenger, and then you can upgrade to the Avenger Plus. Now, we originally had done the reference before the Plus, but then we found that we were missing that $15,000 marker. Going from 10,000 to 20, that was a heck of a gap. And then we had all these a la carte weird orders that came in that were driving everybody nuts. Like, okay, this guy wants a 9-inch arm with a rim drive, and I don't know, man. You know, so that's why we ended up coming up with what the $15,000 flavor would be.
That's a good move.
Yeah, and that's with the dual motor flywheel, with an ADS, and with a 12-inch reference arm with the Nordos wiring and periphery ring. So
that's awesome. I apologize for the disruption here. My dog was whimpering and hollering and whimpering and so on. So anyway, he's no longer in my office. So I apologize for the disturbance there. So when you go from the Avenger to the Avenger Plus, obviously there's a nice difference in the quality of sound that you get. As we know, in all of our systems and in products, it's a whole bunch of little things that you do that make one large difference. And so we see that as you upgrade through the parts and things that are used within the Avenger, and then to the Avenger Plus, and then of course Avenger Reference. So share a little bit about the Avenger Reference, and then when we move from there to the Titan and how that is.
Perfect. Yeah. So with the Avenger Reference, the big thing that changes is, well, first off, you have the feet. So you have your Avenger Reference feet, which are actually, it's just like these guys that are back here, where it's a you have an isolator that's within a cone that sits in with another isolator. You can tap dance. That's the plan, since you can tap dance while this is all happening. And so that's the first thing with the feet. And then with the actual assembly, that's when you have your magnetic drive. And what's happening with that is I want to say rim, but you can do rim or belt, again, depending upon your preference. Not too long ago, there was a reviewer who had it as a rim drive, but then chose to go belt. And for him, he liked belt better. Me personally, actually, I would go belt, rim, direct drive. That's what I look as far as being my sonic preference. But for some people, they like a belt drive better. So, and again, being another advantage of the Avenger, where you can have any type that you like. And with the magnetic drive, the bottom platter is being driven by whatever the drive system, belt or rim. Then the bottom platter is magnetically turning the top platter. So it kind of works as I jokingly call it the water filter for vibration. So, and that's why it's dead quiet. And when you have an Avenger Reference dialed in and properly set up, it is one of the, well, then again, our direct drive does it too. So, but it is an extraordinarily quiet table. And then had things gone differently with COVID, we had plans for another option. And again, I do say option. It's I want to say upgrade, but just give you an idea. We did a listening session between two individuals, and we did rim drive versus direct drive. This is going back a couple of years. We were using the prototype, actually it was 3 years ago. It was the prototype Fat Boy, Lyra Atlas, and it was a unipivot. So we listened, and actually it was using the JBL Everest, so it was these speakers. And we took the Fat Boy, we had it on the rim drive, then we moved it over to the direct drive. We went back and forth, back and forth. And it got to the point where, when you're listening to something so many times, you're like, oh, geez, I don't even know what I'm hearing anymore. And my dad and I look at each other like, and these two went nuts. Rim drive's better. What are you, crazy? The direct drive destroyed it. You've got no ears. You've got no ears. And the end result was the guy that liked the rim drive, he got the rim drive flavor of the Avenger. And the one that liked the direct drive got the direct drive. So again, it's just a preference thing. So that is something that will be what would have been an option at this point, but eventually, whenever the world gets back to normal, if there ever is a level of normalcy.
But there will be.
Yes.
One way or another, we're either going to adapt to one or we're actually going to have one. So
yes.
either way, there will be a sense of normalcy somewhere. So what we have is the Avenger Plus, and the Avenger Reference. And again, they're just a beautifully styled table with some nice differences as you go up the line, and some nice differences in sonics as you go up the line as well. So anyway, we're now going to get into what is currently kind of the flagship, but maybe not so much anymore. And we'll talk about that in a minute as well, I guess. So tell us about the Titan and what makes it so special.
That was hilarious, because that was, and again, I tell people, what it is. And, I was at Munich, and I was so proud of the Avenger Reference. We launched it. It was a success. I think we had just gotten this amazing review. I'm telling all the distributors about it. I'm so proud. And then one of my distributors was just like, oh man, the price, Matt, come on. Now I'm like, hey, we're VPI. You know us. It's a fair price. I'm sorry it's expensive. But they're like, oh, no. It's not too expensive. It's too cheap. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I was just so confused. And then another distributor told me the same thing. Then one of them said, oh, Matt, it's okay. It's still new. Just raise it by 10,000. And then I'm like, what do you mean? And then again, the idea of that, and then they're kind of complimenting me, saying how hey, listen, you get so much from VPI, even if you raise it up, it's believable. I'm like, no, that's not how we work. It's because we really do follow the rules of manufacturing, so these prices are reflective of the costs and what it takes to make it.
Build.
So then that's when I was like, okay, you know what? Let's try. And actually what it was is initially it was requested that VPI, you want to be really taken seriously, which we could talk about how messed up our whole industry is, but they're like, oh, can you make an Avenger Reference that's $80,000? So we tried. The Titan's only 40, so we only got halfway there.
You got halfway there.
Yep, and it ends up being double the price of the Avenger Reference. And what we did was with the Titan, it's double stacked. So in a way, it's almost like it's two turntables away. So, and there is merit to everything we did with it. The platter of the Titan, it is just a big, thick piece of aluminum, a big old chunk that is, it weighs about 40 pounds, the platter, that's magnetically driven, similar to how the Avenger Reference is. It's two chassis, and the platter sits through it and does not touch it. So even though it has the height and everything, there's isolation in between the posts. So all of it is to isolate it better, to have more mass. And then in the feet, we have our air suspension feet. Now, I will tell you, those air suspension feet are complete overkill. Actually, the whole table is overkill. But it's there. It does have and we did the listening comparison, and we're very open about the fact that the Titan, you're not getting a head and shoulders difference, because once you get into the Avenger range, you got diminishing returns. It's just with any brand, any product, you get to a point, you're not going from, wow. It's more like, yeah, I got it. So the Titan's better. And what I tell people is that if you want one of the best tables that VPI's ever made, get the Avenger Reference or an AW40. But if you want, if that extra 2% is meaningful, and the $20,000 increase, you know, if it's meaningful to you and you can afford it, there you go. Get the Titan. And then the other car, is that, hey guys, hey Dad, we are live with Alan over at HiFi Buys. Harry Shear.
Hey, Harry.
You want to say hi? Hey, here, have a seat. You're live with the world. Alan.
I know everybody would love that.
Alan Jones from HiFi Buys.
Hi there. How you doing?
Hey, I'm fine, Harry. How are you?
I'm COVID ready.
You are. You are. And I'm
am.
glad you are taking care of yourself.
I just got in. Let me do what I have to do, and I'll be back.
Okay.
Well, there's Harry, everybody. So, yeah, a lot of live stream going on here.
So I'm going to do just a minute of housekeeping, then we're going to get into kind of the cleaning machines and then a couple of special things that they've been working on that if you've been following him on Facebook, you'll see. And
Actually,
so it'll be great to have Harry here as well to work in that.
This would be perfect. When we get to the 14-inch arm, I'll just throw him on because that's that is,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So if y'all will please like and share out there. This is going to be fun having Harry on as well. And you end up finding, if you have any questions or anything, Chris, if you will, just put that out there so that the folks can ask questions. Also, if you don't mind going to HiFi Buys and sign up for our newsletter there, that'll keep you informed of what's going on now and also in the future. Also, a lot of those newsletters or blogs are on our website as well. So, but we have Matt here with HiFi Chats number 13. Matt is president of VPI. And next week, I will not be doing a HiFi Chats, which is the first time in 14 weeks that I won't be doing one. But anyway, I'll be up in the mountains in the wineries having a little birthday celebration. So on July 10th, the following Friday, we'll have Garth Powell. He'll be with us and really excited about having him. He's a very exciting guy to talk to. Garth's presentations are always something else. Matt, this has really been fun going through the table lines. So one of the things you end up finding, you know, tone arm upgrades and that kind of thing. Tell us, just kind of briefly give the folks an idea of kind of what happens with VPI if you want to go from one tone arm to another or that type of thing.
Yep. So now the first thing that you get from the different arms is the length. So when you start at the Prime Scout, you have your 9-inch arm. Then you go to the Prime series where you have a 10-inch. Then once you get to the Avenger, you have your 12. Now with that, the longer the arm, the less tracking distortion. So that's a huge thing. And actually, this record, I believe, has it. This is the record that we use. I don't know if the camera can show it. Yeah, There we go. So we actually have this record as our setup record for the 14-inch arm, because with the 14-inch arm, there's no offset at all. Now, the 14-inch arm isn't technically available yet, but it will be. And the only holdup has been just because of COVID-19. I can't get this back on now. There we go.
COVID-19 holding up the 14. I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah. I'll get you over here. I like a comedian with this stuff. Yeah, so and with the unipivot, or rather with our arms in general, at each stage, we offer it can be in metal or actually going back, it's offered in either unipivot or gimbal. At the moment, the standard, if you know, when you order a table from VPI, if it's not specified, it's a unipivot. If it's specified, it could be a gimbal. And the good news is there's no additional cost. So we have a gimbal option for all of our tables, be it from a Prime Scout on up. And so with the upgrades of the arm, with the standard arm being all metal, you have, again, that type. But once you get to the Prime, you have that 10-inch 3D arm where you have the advantage of the technology and the 3D printing. And again, like I was saying before, it's just totally dead. And the other beauty of a VPI arm is it drops right in. So you can actually take the arm, drop it in, listen to it, take it out and drop another arm with a different cartridge. We were doing that like crazy yesterday. So when everyone saw me posting all those pictures, you know, we were going through arms like crazy, just drop. Actually, that was so much fun yesterday. And I'll see if I can, you want to
5 pods and 5 arms, have them all set up and just shove them against the jig and they're all set to go.
There we go. Just go nuts with that stuff. Yeah. So with the different materials, with the ability to drop them in, with the different lengths, that's as far as different upgrades amongst the different arms.
Yeah. So as far as, so if somebody has like a 10-inch arm on it and they want to upgrade to a 12-inch, they can't just do that automatically.
That's correct. So you can't in a stand. Now, once you have an Avenger, now you'll notice back here, I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can see in the picture here that we have this pod. This was something we were looking into last year. And again, COVID happened. But then, I don't know, this past week, we kind of said, screw it. We're just going to do stuff. COVID be damned. We're just going to get our things together in general. That specific pod, which is a prototype, is actually a prime signature motor pod that's being used for this. And now this isn't meant to be a standard, you're not really doing this on a prime. This is for that customer who wants a VPI arm. They have a different table, or maybe they do have a prime and they just want to put it off to the side or something like that. So in the back. And actually that's something that we're going to experiment with next Tuesday. Maybe we'll do a live stream of it where we're going to take the pod and put it right in back of a prime or a prime signature. So with the, the pod, like in this case, just being able to drop different things on there. So we're just having a lot of fun with this stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to get in a little bit into that 14-inch arm here in a minute and what makes it so different. But you've got a couple of cleaners, one that I've been selling the 16 or 16.5 for, I don't know, I feel like since I was about 2. And there's been almost no problems with it and that kind of thing that I've ever experienced. The thing does a great job of cleaning. It's very easy to use. End up finding it's pretty much about it, in my opinion, kind of a staple in the industry. I've also played around with the Cyclone as well. And I think the housings and those kind of things, obviously in there are upgraded and so on. And I believe you had something to do. I see the HW changes to an MW when we go from one cleaner to the other. So tell us a little bit about the MW1 Cyclone and why you chose to do that.
So with that, now the original reason we came with this was we did run into an issue with the HW17 from a supplier standpoint. Now that was a staple product that we used for many years. And one of the advantages was that pump. Unfortunately, there was some unfortunate things that happened with our supplier for the pump. That company went out of business and it was becoming very difficult to produce. But the main success of the 17 was it was a workhorse. You could just sit there and clean records all day and not kill the thing. So that's where my idea with it was to have something like the HW 16.5, but make it more of a workhorse and make it, where you can be more abusive with it, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So we took the concept of this HW 16.5, made it all metal. So now there's no worry of any leaks, of anything getting into the MDF, none of that stuff. And then the other thing is with the motor, this is the big advantage, bi-directional. So you clean in one direction, you can clean in the other direction. And then you're just in good shape all around with that. So that was where, and then when we did it, and then I was like, oh, HW, I'm picking up a number. And my dad's like, what are you talking about? This is yours. This is an MW. And so it was kind of cute when he said that. I'm like, wow, Dad, you're right. So then that's when we went with the whole MW. And we actually were thinking about that, MW1, then like the Prime, have that be an MW. But we ended up not following that path. It just, for the Cyclone, it worked.
You went to bed and woke up the next day like with a little hop in your step going, yeah, man, MW.
Yep.
Let's
go.
Yeah,
I got this. Yeah. Well,
Let's go,
it's funny.
baby.
You look at the forums, my dad would always sign as HW. Then I went through a period where I was signing MW. I'm like, oh, geez, what am I doing?
Well, as they say, in most cases, the apple does not fall far from the tree.
Yep, this is true.
Awesome. So you have a speed controller as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's the ADS. Now, we originally had the SDS, and we love that unit and everything else, but moving forward in time and engineering and whatnot, so then we ended up doing the ADS, which what it really does is it locks that motor in. Now, the first thing it does, because all of us have power outlets, and it's supposed to be 60 hertz, but that's an average. So it's like 59.9, 60.01, whatever it is. So when you plug into the ADS and then into the wall, it locks that in. You are getting a true 60 hertz voltage going on, so that you don't have any fluctuation. Then you can adjust the speed. You can and then you could actually change to a 1-step pulley instead of a 2-step pulley. And then it just adds another level of adjustability for starters, gets that locked in. And also we find sonically just opens the soundstage, and we just really love it.
Speed matters.
Yes, it does. And
I mean-
actually, another thing which you all be seeing a little bit later now, again, due to COVID, we, right before this all hit, we actually had our recent training, we were showing, and we did some like slight little sneak peek pictures of the next level ADS that has also has a tachometer. So you can also see it as you're raising and lowering it. But again, these are things which once the world opens back up, you'll be seeing hopefully a little later this year.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, in this crazy world right now, how y'all have had to kind of adjust. I know that you're up in an area that got hit pretty hard. So y'all were pretty much at home for a while, and tell us a little bit about how it's gone for you.
Well, initially, frankly, it was really scary, like for everybody. And we got very lucky because for the state of New Jersey, we were considered essential. And so we technically never closed down. And I still remember that Friday before we thought we were done. And I mean, oh, forget it. I was having the false confidence with the whole staff, like, oh, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, good Lord, what are we going to do? We're not going to be able to produce. We're not going to be able to do anything. You know, we had our Whiskey Friday that we do. And we may have were a little heavy handed on that one because it was just, it was sad. Everything. It was, what do we do? What's going to happen? Are we all going to get sick and die? What's happening now? And so the original plan was to just work through that weekend, make as many tables as possible. And then since I'm the owner of the company and the property, like I was legally allowed to go in. So
Right.
The thought behind it was, okay, I guess I'll just do it. And again, I have family members and whatnot. So originally that was what it was. But then that Saturday, my operations manager comes in. She has the whole thing and she said, I think we're good. And I read it. I'm like, oh my God, I think we are. So I call my lawyer, who's also a VPI customer. So he knows exactly what this is. And he said, yeah, Matt, you guys are essential. And I'm like, how does that work? Now, being essential or not, it's not like things were moving because all you guys were closed down, the stores, everybody. And the other part of it was I felt that if we were going to be open, and we had to follow CDC guidelines, we had to change our factory, everyone had to go apart. And then what we did though is we changed gears. We started making hand sanitizer. We started making face shields.
I saw that. That was
the
awesome.
intubation boxes, anything we could. And originally, to be brutally honest, I did not think we were going to matter. Did not think that it was going to, we were just, I would feel like we were almost doing it to be cute. Then a hospital reached out to me. And our original hand sanitizer, if you look back, was green. When it was green, that was complete. I jokingly called it prohibition bathtub, bathtub sanitizer. And when a hospital reached out to me, I told them, listen, we just like mix this stuff up. I mean, it's good, but we don't know what we're doing. We make turntables. The hospital was like, we don't care. We need it.
Yep.
So we really got serious about it. I partnered up with a distillery up in North Jersey, a company called Skunktown Distillery. And I was driving up there once a week to pick up a big bucket of 5 gallons of ethanol alcohol. And we were just mixing, and we followed FDA guidelines. My staff members, Claire and Jose, they went through the gambit of figuring this out. My guy, Jan, he's the little chemist. So he got that all figured out with that. And then Carla, she'd mix it. There's just and we jokingly said, like, that we were living a weird episode of Breaking Bad and Black Mirror. But it was March and April was very touch and go. Some weeks were good or bad. One thing we did, and fortunately people have seen the benefit, we did start our direct site, but where it's a partnership with the dealership. And we had dealers at, there was one down south, I think in Virginia. He called me up. He was like, I don't know what to do, Matt. I'm closed. Sales done. Customer's happy. He's ready to go. What do I do? And so we had him. He ordered, the customer ordered right through the site. We got it right to him. Everything was good. Customer's happy. Dealer was happy. And it just worked. And I think it was a nice way for us to intro into having a direct site, but not one that is, hurting the dealership, one that's an overall partnership where we're all just working together. And that's been very successful and so far well received. And the other thing I found is that people are buying parts. They're home, they're on their system. Maybe they can't get that next table, but they're getting parts. Then the other side is that you got some people that said, nah, screw it, let's get an HW40.
Yeah, that's happened as well.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had more requests for some kind of weird cable adapter from something that's not made to something else that's not made.
Yep.
During this time, we got an awful lot of phone calls for that. But you're right. I think an awful lot of people had some time at home to go through, some of the things they've been trying to get to and go through, and all of a sudden, wow, I need this.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yep. So anyway, that's been pretty awesome. So let's, I'm going to ask y'all, if you will, if you have any questions. I've got really just about one more question for Matt, and then we're going to get into a little Q&A. It looks like we had quite a few questions answered, but we've done such a thorough job that we've answered, I think, all but one. So anyway, I feel good about that. And so y'all have on Facebook as of late have been showing this 14-inch arm that's behind you. Tell us a little bit about that, okay?
Sure.
And kind of
Hey,
its
Harry.
purpose and its advantages.
You want to talk about your 14-inch arm? Let's trade spots. Have a seat. I'll hand it to you. Totally throwing them on the spot.
Oh,
Hey there.
I walk in, I was just on the beach.
There you go.
You poor thing.
I know.
Tough life.
I know.
So I've been seeing something about this arm over the last couple of days, and just wanted to tell us a little bit about what's in your mind about, the 12 versus 14. Why not 18?
Well, there are a couple of things on my mind here. A 12-inch arm sounds really, really good. If you get it just right, you get everything lined up, everything is good. Lightweight, 3D printed, but it's got the tube on the inside, so it's nice and rigid, blah, blah, blah. But then when you go to the 14-inch arm, if you listen to classical music more than rock, those violins become so sweet, so beautiful to listen to, and the soundstage becomes really three-dimensional. Now, the question is 14-inch with or without the offset angle.
Yep.
That's where my problem is. Because in theory, with the offset angle, it has lower tracking distortion than a 14-inch arm that doesn't have the offset angle. But then we listen to it and we do high-res dubs using the same cartridge, level matched, and we can't tell the difference.
Wow.
So tracking error of the 14-inch arm with the offset angle is very close to the tracking error of the arm with no offset angle.
Wow.
So why have the offset angle if you can't hear the difference? And then there's no skating at all, no skating force.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come to the point where, is it a stainless steel arm, thin wall tubing, or the 3D printed arm? Because on a 14-inch arm, this is a little more rigid.
Mm-hmm.
This arm has slam, bang, the whole business, and with these JBLs, you can really hear that. I mean,
Yep.
these things are sick. These things
They
will
are.
reproduce a live drum set in the room. They're sick. and with this arm, it really comes out. Now, granted, the 3D printed arm is a little sweeter, a little bit nicer. But if you listen to, I don't know, Led Zeppelin, or what we listened to yesterday, Metallica.
I told him how you hated it.
This is a Metallica arm. Oh my God, this arm rocks like crazy.
Wow.
And what's even more interesting, we're going to make this arm minus all this VTA bass. This is going to mount from here right into the pod.
Okay.
So it's going to be incredibly rigid, incredibly simple, and you'll still have VTA. In fact, we may put the VTA right into the pod, which would be very interesting.
Yep.
So that's another. And I don't know whether you know it, with this arm, Okay, nothing's holding it. So, one hand's holding it, the other hand's doing the work. You can pull out the rod and change arm tubes whenever you want to.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole thing lifts right out. It's really cool. Yeah, I got it.
That's pretty neat stuff.
How many watts with only two hands? So we're really torn, but what we're doing is double DSD and 24-192 dubs, and then we don't tell anybody what they're listening to.
Okay.
Just tell me which sounds more real, more like a live drum, live violin, live this and that. And that's a lot of fun, because when someone doesn't know, like now they have to actually come up with the goods, and then they can't get the goods because they sound so close. And if they're that close, why put the offset angle in there?
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Yep. That might be a game changer.
Yes.
Never know.
This is what we're playing with. And what's nice also about the 14-inch arm, you can have a prime. It's so long, you can stick it right in the rear of the prime. Now you have a 10-inch arm and a 14-inch arm on the prime.
Yep.
It's going to sound fabulous.
Yeah, I would imagine that, as these arm tubes get bigger and longer and that kind of thing, there's lots of differences in the resonances and that kind of stuff that happens every time you change those links. And, a lot of homework has to be done, which obviously you're all about.
Thing that's interesting. You know what the straight tone arm really likes? That Denon 103D. Probably because it's got a round tip to it as opposed to an ultra fine tip. Now, we do listening tests with the 103D against, like an Audio Technica. And you can hear that the Audio Technica is digging in deeper and really extracting everything. But the 103D is incredibly musical to listen to. I don't know.
Yep.
It's exhausting doing this.
That's one of the wonderful things about this business is we can have our preference in physics too.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And it's so much fun. Okay, I'm going to give you back to Matt, because we're going to actually be leaving soon.
Harry, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
No? Okay. And I'm back.
All right.
We had a nice little guest appearance there.
That was awesome. I know everybody really enjoyed seeing Harry. Hey, listen, Matt, I want to thank you. We're going to do a little Q&A here, but I want to thank you so much for taking out your, now almost 2.5 hours out of your schedule and sharing your time with us. I know that we've had a lot of interested parties. I want to go ahead and get the question that I see in here. And let's see, we did get a request for more VPI and HiFi buys turntable mats.
Hey, well, there we go. We got them. So, know that they're pretty stylish.
we'll have to get you to get some of those made and send them down to us. So I have a gentleman. This is a question from Dave W. Hey, Dave, thank you very much for putting up the question. Is it worth upgrading my Prime Scout or buying one of the tables above it? If so, what parts should he buy?
Well, that's a good question. So the nice thing about the Prime Scout and all the tables is everything is easily upgradable. It comes down to, and of course, if you're buying it from Alan over here, I mean, he's filled with all these, Alan, as well as all of his technicians, have the ability to do that upgrade for you. So that's where it comes down to, if you have a dealer that's in your area that can do it for you, that's the best, because, well, they're trained and knowledgeable. Otherwise, if you feel like you could do it yourself, then by all means. I've watched on Facebook some customers just go from a basic Scout to like this behemoth of a, there's one table out there. I personally think the guy's gotten a little overboard and should have just gotten a new table. But you know what? If you're enjoying it, great, fantastic. So that's why it's kind of up to you as far as what you think that you can handle, because you could just get the components and then add it on there. Technically speaking, it does come out to be more expensive than if you had bought it brand new. But again, you're breaking up your investment anyway, so it's not like you're getting hit in the face all in one shot.
Right.
Then the option then would be to, I mean, if you were on to get a Prime Scout up to the level of a prime because it's the same motor. It's, it's smaller, but it's not gonna be the same weight in the motor pod and things like that. But the big core things is the bladder and the arm and VTA base. And it really depends upon when you can do this. If this is something where you want to do it over time, then I'd say upgrade the bladder first, then upgrade the VTA base, then upgrade the arm. Or because now we have 9-inch 3D arms, upgrade to a 9-inch 3D arm first. See if you even like a 3D arm. And some people like to just trade or do whatever. You could maybe see if you can get both and do a solid listing comparison and be like, you know what?
Yep.
I really do like this 3D arm. Well, realistically, anyone who's done that comparison, they love the 3D arm better. But it just depends upon your timetable, what you're looking for, and also your real estate in the sense of your table space. The Prime Scout's biggest advantage is it fits in spots that other tables can't fit. So that's why having the Prime Scout as the chassis, main chassis, might be beneficial if you may not have a rack that is as large to fit it. If you just want to have a nice clean upgrade and not deal with it, then talk to our friends at HiFi Buy, see if maybe I don't know if you take trades or not, Alan, but
we do.
Well, there you go. So see if you can work out a trade situation with Alan, and then just get a Prime or Prime Signature, make your life easier. So I think it depends upon your paradigm of what will make you happy. If you want to be part of the building, or if you say, Alan, screw, just do it for me, man. Give me a gun, and then you just trade it in.
Yep. I think the difference in the cost of those tables is I think about 2,200 to about 4K.
Yep.
And so not a monstrous deal there. And I find I know that we just took in a table recently where someone had upgraded just about all their parts on the VPI, and he bought an HW40. And
I know that guy.
So yeah, that was actually a nice deal, and really enjoyed that. So thank you for that. We're happy here is HiFi Buys, Alan, and we've got David and Ed that are both pretty extraordinary turntable experts. They've both been at it a long time. So don't hesitate to call us here at the store or email us and ask your questions.
Yeah, you guys are certified. So those out there watching, HiFi Buys, they went to, they sent the technician to the VPI training. So now we have authorized VPI dealers, but then you have the certified authorized dealers, which means that this guy right here, HiFi Buys, went the extra distance. They came out to Jersey. They got to see the factory, and they got to see how crazy we are over here. So something else to keep in mind.
That's awesome. I wish I could have personally made that trip.
Well, one day, man, we'll get you out here.
Yep. One day we will all get back to traveling. Hey, so I do have someone wondering if it is possible and reasonable for VPI to make a video showing the symptoms of VTA being set too high, too low, and just right.
That's actually a great, we can do that. And so what we have been doing, we were trying to get on schedule of doing a Tuesday, Thursday thing, because that's when Harry comes down here, when he does. But life and everything keeps getting in the way. But we've been staying pretty true. Like yesterday, we did the live stream. So yes, so we can definitely do. And I love doing the live streams like this, because then this is real. There's no the magic of video editing over here. That was a real dog. That was things like that. So to that person who asked that question, yes, we can totally do that. And my dad and I've been having a lot of fun experimenting and doing this stuff. So it's been good.
Yep. Well, I think everybody's out there is, that VTA is one of those mysterious little things. I know Fremer and I were discussing it a little bit, how it's kind of overused in a lot of cases. I know y'all believe that too. So, a lot of people really do wonder where, how strong should it be? What should it sound like? How do we, know, and so on and so forth. So, and I was thinking more of anti-skate, sorry in my question there, but,
Yep.
What they're wanting to do is see what the VTA is. So anyway, they'll be looking forward to that. And that should be interesting. It is so great for you to have Harry. I mean, you have so many years of experience through builds and so much that it must just be a wealth for you to be able to get and be able to, I guess I'm not saying this right, but I love learning. And I think to have that guy around me, for me to be able to ask questions and learn and to do all this stuff would just be phenomenal. So
yeah. Oh yeah, we have a lot of fun too. Just go like yesterday, going from 14 inches to 12 inches to a metal to a and changing cartridges like crazy. It's really a lot of fun.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Matt, listen, I want to thank you very much for your time today. This has been HiFi Chats with HiFi Buys and Matt Weisfeld, who is president at VPI. And we had a little visit from Harry, his dad and founder of VPI. And so anyway, I want to thank everybody so much for your time today. Everybody be out there, be safe, take care of yourselves and your neighbors. And above all, be kind. It costs nothing.
Definitely.
And Matt, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alan. It's great to be here. Hope you all enjoyed and learned something. Always feel free to reach out to us with any other questions, and stay safe out there.
Awesome. So this will be on HiFi Buys YouTube channel, and I'll be up there probably in about an hour. I think is about how long they take to actually take these live things and get them on the YouTube channel. I may be wrong, so it's somewhere in there. But anyway, this again has been Alan Jones with HiFi Buys, and this has been HiFi Chats number 13 with Matt Weisfeld, president of VPI. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. Take care.